Chapter 2103. Boom, boom. Waves of heat spread out from Itsuka Kotori's body. The scorching light was like a storm, and the heat wave swept through the entire barrier space. Due to the high temperature, the sky within the barrier had turned into a fiery red color, and a terrifying amount of heat filled the air. The little girl is so young, but her outburst is quite terrifying. Her strength is barely not bad. Wuxia nodded secretly. The power of this elf really could not be underestimated. Back off now and I can pretend that nothing happened. Itsuka Kotori was quite arrogant. She looked around the barrier and frowned. Wait for me to get angry, and the consequences won't be something you can bear. Dustless didn't say anything, but his face was very strange. Being threatened by a beautiful girl, this feeling was very strange. Idiot, don't anger the commander. Murasame Rain quickly got close to Dustless and said nervously, if you continue to be arrogant, you will only make the commander angry. At that time, the battle between the two elves may destroy this city. The life and death of others has nothing to do with me. Dustless looked at Murasame Rain and said coldly, if she doesn't get angry, how can I continue to play? Brat, if you can make me retreat, no, if you can make me retreat one step, then you win. Not only will I let you go, but I will also help you catch Tokisaki Kurumi. How about it? Pay for your stupidity. Itsuka Kotori couldn't take it anymore and charged forward, thrusting out her divine weapon. Itsuka Kotori originally wanted Wu Chen to make a detour so that she wouldn't get in the way of Tokisaki Kurumi. However, who would have thought that this brat would be so arrogant? It was obvious that he was trying to provoke her. Whoosh! The sharp sound of breaking through the air came head-on. Even if the rushing edge hadn't approached Dustless yet, his skin was inevitably stung. Such a violent little girl and an elf, it will be hard for her to get married. Dustless faintly smiled and sighed. None of your business. Hearing that, Itsuka Kotori's mouth twitched a few times, and she increased the amount of spiritual waves in her body, and the chilling light on her axe became even more obvious. Buzz buzz buzz. Dustless did not show any weakness. His right hand trembled slightly and like a black hole, it engulfed a large number of photons in the vacuum. Then, a shining divine sword was instantly compressed and formed. What a unique weapon. Staring at the photon sword in Dustless's hand, Murasame Rain's eyes lit up. She quickly picked up a notebook and hurriedly wrote something. It seemed that she was recording Dustless's data. What's the use of that? I can shatter it with a light stab. Itsuka Kotori chuckled in disdain and unleashed her full power. Clang clang clang. Sparks flew everywhere as the two weapons clashed. The immense force caused Itsuka Kotori's face to pale, and she was forced back a few steps as her arms trembled uncontrollably. Why is the force so strong? She stared at Dustless with her eyes wide open. Itsuka Kotori's mind went blank. This was the first time in her life that she made a mistake. Her hands were numb from the shock, and the blue veins on her wrists were clearly visible. That's it. Dustless said in a contemptuous tone, weak little girl, it's hard for me to get serious. Umph. Hearing that, Itsuka Kotori snorted coldly, and her body trembled slightly, and then a dazzling light appeared. Buzz buzz buzz. The fiery heat wave exploded again. Different from before, this time all the spiritual waves rushed into the axe. The surface of the axe suddenly lit up, and the fiery red light was filled with a dangerous halo of destruction. Itsuka Kotori's spiritual waves poured into the axe, and the two sides of the axe became more and more dazzling. There were even flames coming out of the axe. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori quietly. She was like a fire fairy and she could control the fire element at will. Boom boom boom. The axe had reached a state of energy saturation, and a huge beam of light shot out and rushed toward Dustless. The huge sound made people's eardrums hurt. Dustless looked up and aimed at the beam of light with his right hand, and a golden energy ball appeared at the tip of his thumb. Buzz buzz buzz. He increased the spiritual pressure in his body, and the energy ball gradually became bigger until it was the size of a fist. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As if thinking of something, Dustless frowned and turned the energy in his body. The energy ball shrunk again and most of the energy was recovered. Finally, Dustless's gaze froze, and he casually looked at the incoming beam of light. He flicked his finger and rushed over. Boom boom boom. The two opposing forces collided, and the void exploded, and a terrifying shockwave spread in all directions. Ka. The transparent barrier clearly couldn't withstand this powerful force, and after being attacked by the remaining energy, it was covered in cracks. Bang. The transparent barrier couldn't withstand wave after wave of energy attacks, and it shattered like a mirror. Fortunately, the barrier withstood 95% of the energy attacks, and when the barrier shattered, the shocking energy waves disappeared with the wind. The only thing worth mentioning was that Itsuka Kotori's house was razed to the ground. Seriously, even though the power of Void Flash was weakened, it still caused a huge commotion in the end. Dustless shook his head, indicating that he had already weakened the power of Void Flash, but it still caused a huge commotion. You bastard, I won't let you go so easily, never. On the other side, Itsuka Kotori's angry voice sounded. She bared her teeth and looked like she wanted to bite Dustless to death. Ah. Dustless looked over and saw Itsuka Kotori's sorry state, and he couldn't help but laugh. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2104. Looking at her, Itsuka Kotori, who was arrogant a moment ago, was now embarrassed. There was a layer of dirt on her face was black and even her clothes were burnt. Her skin was exposed to the air, and when the wind blew, some parts of her body were exposed. Ouch! Itsuka Kotori screamed, her face flushed red. She glared at Dustless and scolded, "Bastard, I won't let you off so easily. You better cut your stomach to atone for your sins." Cut my belly? Sorry, I'm a person who is very afraid of pain, and due to some special reasons, I have an immortal body. Dustless shrugged and said perfunctorily, "Wait for me, I'll cut you into pieces." Itsuka Kotori said fiercely. Then continue. Dustless hooked his finger and provoked, "Is this all you're, an angel? You're no different from a vulnerable human." Itsuka Kotori gritted her teeth in anger, but she couldn't say anything. Recalling the previous battle experience, she was really vulnerable to Dustless. "Commander, put on your clothes first." Murasame Rain rolled her eyes at Wuxia and quickly handed her coat to Itsuka Kotori. Only then could the girl's exposed body be covered. "Do you have any gentlemanly demeanor? How dare you hit such a beautiful girl like me?" Itsuka Kotori put on her clothes while cursing Dustless. "People like you should go to hell." "That's good." Murasame Rain looked at Itsuka Kotori calmly. Dustless suddenly scolded Itsuka Kotori, she was like a deflated balloon, and her anger disappeared. "Fix the house, I want to sleep." Hearing that, Dustless just glanced at the two as if nothing happened, and then leisurely turned around and left. "I'm going to buy a cup of Coke." Under the sunlight, Dustless's figure gradually elongated, and soon disappeared from their sight. This guy is too despicable. Itsuka Kotori was so angry that she stomped her feet. Looking at the ruins of Itsuka Kotori's house, she wanted to cry but had no tears. She cursed, "Dustless, this B***starred raised my house to the ground and asked me to rebuild it. How can he be in the mood to drink Coke? He doesn't even have the slightest remorse." "Repent?" Murasame Lingyin listened to the cold sweat and couldn't help but complain. "Didn't you hear what he said? He tried his best to suppress his strength just now." In front of the vending machine on the other side, Dustless had just inserted a coin when a can of Coke fell out. "That violent girl seems pretty strong." After opening the can of cola, Dustless casually found a place to sit down and muttered to himself, "The elf's abilities are not bad. That starter elf should be more fun." It's really fun. At this moment, a seductive voice sounded. The tone was very seductive and moving. It was like taking drugs and people couldn't help but look over. "It's you." Dustless glanced at the girl who slowly walked over and said lightly, "Are you here to challenge me? Did you forget the lesson from last time so quickly?" The uninvited girl was Tokisaki Kurumi. "Hey, you can't say that. I think we can walk together." Tokisaki Kurumi sat beside Dustless and chuckled, "At least for now, it seems like we have the same goal. I'm not interested in children's fights." Dustless didn't even look at Tokisaki Kurumi as he casually said, "You elves are just an existence to relieve boredom in my eyes. As for the goal, it's just your wishful thinking." He didn't want elves, so what goal did he have? Cold and arrogant as always. Tokisaki Kurumi wasn't angry. Instead, she moved closer to Dustless's ear and whispered a long string of words. "We can work together to find the starter elf. Then you or I can kill her." Tokisaki Kurumi's eyes flickered with a dangerous light. Her tone was sinister and didn't seem like she was speaking casually. "You want to use me?" Dustless frowned at Tokisaki Kurumi as he coldly said, "Help you kill the starter elf and your dream will be fulfilled. The other elves will also disappear." Tokisaki Kurumi's expression froze. She looked at Dustless in surprise and said strangely, "Don't all humans want elves to disappear?" Don't compare me to those mortals. Dustless continued to leisurely drink his cola and said, they're just elves. I've seen all kinds of monsters. Do you think elves are special? In my eyes, they're just ordinary people with superpowers. If the elves were monsters and heretics, then Dustless could be called the Great Demon King. After all, he was the Ten Tails. The elves were nothing compared to him. You? Tokisaki Kurumi stared at Dustless in astonishment. She didn't know why, but she felt a warm current in her heart. She carefully looked at Dustless's handsome and serious face. His magnanimous tone didn't seem like he was lying, nor was there a need to. You're not that annoying. Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless seriously for the first time. For the first time, she felt that the man in front of her wasn't that annoying. Elves had always been the enemy of the world. This was the first time she was recognized by an outsider. It was a strange feeling, but she didn't hate it. However, Dustless's next sentence made Tokisaki Kurumi fly into a rage. But you're annoying. You're like a shadow that won't go away. You're not allowed to follow me anymore. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2105. Tokisaki Kurumi was so angry that she felt dizzy. She pointed at Dustless with a trembling finger. This bastard didn't know how many people were fawning over her every day, but this bastard showed a look of disdain. Especially when he looked like he had eaten a fly, it made Tokisaki Kurumi want to vomit blood. Remember this clearly. Goodbye? After throwing the can into the trash can, Wuxia turned around and walked away. Only Tokisaki Kurumi was left on the bench with her eyes wide open. You? Tokisaki Kurumi stared at Dustless's back. She couldn't help but feel a little stuffy. She subconsciously touched her face and her curvy figure and muttered to herself, am I so unattractive that this bastard isn't interested in me at all? Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless unwillingly. She gritted her teeth and chased after him. Oh, I remember you asked me to be your maid last time, right? Tokisaki Kurumi stopped in front of Dustless and bowed elegantly to Dustless. Yes, I did. Dustless looked down at Tokisaki Kurumi, who was a head shorter than him, and laughed. Are you going to change your mind now? Change my mind. Tokisaki Kurumi laughed and didn't say anything. She treated it as a joke that went in one ear and out the other. Why don't I tease you a little so you don't have to be so cocky? Tokisaki Kurumi rolled her eyes and a cunning look flashed in her eyes. You want me to be your maid? Although the request is unreasonable, it's not impossible. Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with a smile. No one knew what she was thinking. Dustless didn't move. He looked at Tokisaki Kurumi silently, as if waiting for her to say something. Actually, the request is very simple. All you need to do is to pay a small price, Tokisaki Kurumi said with a hidden meaning. Price? Dustless looked at Tokisaki Kurumi with interest and didn't refuse. Tell me about it. As long as you, giving Dustless a playful look, Tokisaki Kurumi laughed. As long as you wash my feet 10 times, I'll agree to your conditions. In all fairness, Tokisaki Kurumi's conditions weren't harsh. On the contrary, they were ordinary and there wasn't any unreasonable request. The reason why he asked Dustless to wash his feet was because he felt that Dustless was too arrogant and needed to be suppressed. This condition is very easy to fulfill. It's very simple and even very considerate. Anyone can easily fulfill it. Dustless spoke softly without any ripples in his tone. Shouldn't you be happy? Tokisaki Kurumi was speechless. This guy was as clueless as a rock. So do you agree or not? As soon as he finished speaking, Tokisaki Kurumi stared at Wuxia without blinking. She was quite confident in her looks. Tokisaki Kurumi's face was filled with smiles. From her point of view, Wuxia should have immediately agreed to her request. To be able to obtain such a beautiful maid, he should be so happy that he couldn't even find his bearings. Let me think. Dustless didn't say much. He only replied with 3 words, then lowered his head to think about something. Bastard, I gave you such a generous condition, and you still dare to think about it? Tokisaki Kurumi almost went crazy. Dustless's hesitant expression was clearly saying that she was at a disadvantage. Even if she gave him an inch, he should know when to stop. After thinking about it for a long time, I finally understood. After a long while, Dustless finally took a deep breath. He looked at Tokisaki Kurumi seriously with a faint smile on his face. He seemed to be very satisfied with his idea. At least you know what's good for you. Tokisaki Kurumi breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, she didn't choose to be Dustless's maid on a whim. She had thought it through carefully. Tokisaki Kurumi's goal was to kill the first elf. However, it was too difficult for her to do it alone. After witnessing Dustless's terrifying strength, she knew that if she and Dustless worked together, the first elf would die without a doubt. Secondly, she had suffered a lot in front of Dustless. She still wanted to take revenge on Dustless, but it was impossible in terms of strength. After all, she had witnessed how terrifying and heaven-defying Dustless was. Therefore, she could only take action in other ways. Letting Dustless wash her feet was a way to make up for her broken pride. I suddenly changed my mind. Previously, you only needed to agree to my conditions. Now the conditions have changed. Dustless suddenly said. Changed? Tokisaki Kurumi was stunned. Of course it has changed. You have to wash my feet 10 times before I agree to be your maid. It's the kind of job that lasts a lifetime. I'll do anything you want me to do. As she spoke, Tokisaki Kurumi even licked her lips seductively. You misunderstood me. Lightly glancing at Shirasaki Kurumi, Wuxia slowly said, In the past you only needed to agree to be my maid, but now what? Tokisaki Kurumi's mouth twitched a few times as she looked at Dustless's naughty smile. She felt a deep sense of unease. You have to call me daddy 100 times before I agree. Dustless rolled his eyes and said seriously. You bastard. Tokisaki Kurumi's face was filled with rage. A vintage gun appeared in her hand. Bang, bang, bang. Without even thinking, a series of dense bullets were fired out. Poochie. Poochie. A few huge holes appeared in Dustless's head in the blink of an eye. Even his eyes were pierced. But in the next second, they were repaired by the glint fruit. This bastard, I must kill him. I'm so angry. Tokisaki Kurumi's lungs were about to explode. Helping a beauty wash her feet 10 times could make her a maid for a lifetime. This was a free lunch that fell from the sky. But Dustless, this bastard, not only did he not agree, he even wanted her to call him daddy 100 times before agreeing to be his maid. Could he be any more despicable? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 auto subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2106. Don't push your luck. After wasting half a day, Tokisaki Kurumi finally managed to squeeze out such a sentence. Her watery eyes glared at Dustless. The anger in her eyes could be clearly seen, but she sounded a little timid. She couldn't win in a fight or a verbal battle, so she naturally lacked confidence. I'm pushing my luck. What can you do about it? Dustless retorted indifferently and coldly said, It's your fortune that I've taken a fancy to you. Since you don't know what's good for you, I won't play with you anymore. Goodbye. As his voice faded, Dustless leisurely turned around and left. Despicable guy. I won't let you off so easily. Focusing on Dustless's back, Tokisaki Kurumi stomped her feet in anger and pouted her lips. She was fuming with anger because of Dustless. Her thoughts and memories flowed back like the tide. Thinking back, Tokisaki Kurumi realized that she had never suffered such a huge loss since her debut. Only when she met Dustless did she feel as if she had swallowed a fly. What an overconfident little girl. She actually dared to ask me to wash her feet. She's quite ambitious. Along the way, Dustless seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll as he walked very slowly. Since Itsuka's house had been destroyed, he would definitely have no place to stay when he returned. Boom, boom, boom. A deafening explosion tore through the sky as a violent shockwave blew towards him. Dustless's hair was blown to one side. The relatively cool atmosphere suddenly became a lot hotter. Dustless squinted his eyes and carefully sensed it. This scorching energy seems to belong to Itsuka Kotori. Who's fighting with her again? Dustless was dumbfounded. He was really puzzled. He was sure that this was Itsuka Kotori's energy. He had just fought with her, so he was quite familiar with this energy fluctuation. Interesting. How long has it been? She just fought with me and now she's changed opponents. This arrogant girl really can't be looked at with ordinary eyes. Out of curiosity, Dustless sped towards the center. Boom boom boom. The closer they got, the clearer the ear-piercing rumbling sounds became. Looking up, they saw two figures fighting in the sky, engaging in a life-and-death battle. Balrog, I must kill you today and avenge my parents. The silver-haired girl glared at Itsuka Kotori. When she mentioned her parents, her eyes were filled with coldness. Swish, swish, swish. The equipment that the white-haired girl was wearing provided her with great power. She quickly flew towards Itsuka Kotori with the laser sword in her hand raised high. That's ridiculous. Itsuka Kotori furrowed her brows and flew out without showing any signs of weakness. If we continue fighting like this, it's only a matter of time before something happens. Murasame Rain was secretly anxious, looking at the two people who were fighting fiercely. She sincerely felt that something was wrong. I sensed that one of them was Itsuka Kotori. I thought it was another elf, but it turned out to be this little girl. Dustless walked slowly, looking at the two women fighting in the sky, and smiled. It turned out to be Tabichi Origami. The person who was shouting for revenge was one of the members of AST, Tabichi Origami. It was estimated that the previous fight between Dustless and Itsuka Kotori attracted her. After all, it was too noisy. Seeing Dustless coming, Murasame Rain's eyes lit up and said anxiously, "The task of ending this battle is handed to you. If it continues, the commander may completely go berserk." "It's none of my business." Dustless responded very rudely and said coldly, "What, you treat me as a full-time babysitter? Where the fire is, I will go there to put out the fire. There is a reward." Cursing Dustless thousands of times in her heart, Murasame Rain could only take a step back helplessly. "Not interested, I'm not a greedy person, and you don't have anything worthy of me." Without looking at Murasame Rain, Dustless answered calmly. Murasame Rain felt a headache and could only say in a pleading tone, "Every time the commander transforms into an elf, she can't completely control this power and lose her mind. You don't want her to become a killing machine. Of course, you can ignore the life and death of others, but you don't want the commander to destroy this city, no, your planet, right?" Dustless was slightly stunned, silently stared at Murasame Rain for a long time and rarely praised. "This reason is very good, and it really moved me. Doing things on my territory without my permission is ignoring my authority. This man's temper is really weird." Murasame Rain didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For Dustless, this kind of strange and unpredictable person, he didn't play according to common sense every time. But fortunately, since Dustless agreed to make a move, it indicated that this battle had already ended here. "Go to hell." Itsuka Kotori gradually became angry and suddenly waved the huge axe. Boom. It seemed to be a casual blow, but compared with before, the power was several times stronger, and Tabichi Origami was blown away without any effort. The power is so strong. Tabichi Origami kept retreating, her face changed greatly, and she barely stabilized her body after retreating for more than 10 meters. She held the laser sword with trembling hands, and her arms couldn't help shaking. This casual blow almost broke the will of Tabichi Origami. If it was other AST members, they may have been directly shocked to death by the powerful force. The game ends here. Itsuka Kotori's eyes were full of raging, killing intent, filled with the breath of death. Even if it was a hot summer, being stared at by the horrible red eyes, Tabichi Origami was numb, and her back was cold. Boom. The shape of the giant axe held by Itsuka Kotori suddenly changed, and the huge axe on both sides shrank and became a strange shape similar to an iron pillar. With the increase of the spiritual power output of Itsuka Kotori, the iron pillar glowed with dangerous dark red light, surrounded by high-density golden flames and burned red. "Go to hell." Pointing the weapon coldly at the dazed Tabichi Origami, the thick flame erupted in a beam. The speed was extremely fast, there was no time to dodge, and Tabichi Origami was about to be melted. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2107. Go to hell. He pointed his weapon at the dazed Toichi Origami, and a thick flame erupted in the form of a light beam. It was so fast that Toichi Origami didn't even have time to dodge. "Am I going to die here? I can't accept this. I didn't even get to avenge my parents." Origami Kitsune bitterly smiled, looking very bleak. Looking at the huge ray of light coming towards her, her delicate little face was covered with a layer of beautiful despair. She couldn't avenge her parents, but she was still killed by the enemy. In desperation, Kitaichi Origami calmly closed her eyes and waited for her death. Buzz. It was also at this moment that an inexplicable throbbing came from the horizon. The void in front of Kitaichi Origami suddenly rippled like the surface of the water. "What's going on?" Itsuka Kotori opened her eyes wide, and her red eyes were full of shock. At this moment, she, who was in her elf form, seemed to have returned to consciousness. Kakaka. Accompanied by a violent sound, a huge black hole appeared in the space in front of Koichi Origami. "What is this? A hole?" Tokichi Origami, who had her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes and stared at the black hole in front of her. Her small face was filled with shock. Is this to save me? Could it be Sherdao? Thinking of this, Toichi Origami's heart was full of sweetness. The only person in this world who really cares about her is Shido. This is not a hole, it's my ninjutsu, Kamui, and I'm not Shido, I'm sorry if I disappoint you. An extremely discordant voice came. Yuani Origami suddenly stopped and looked towards the source of the voice. Dustless stepped on the air and came over with a calm face. Shido is not here, the person you hate the most, I'm here. Dustless pointed to his nose and introduced with a smile. Wuxia. At the same time, the black hole that had exploded was like an endless black hole. It swallowed the incoming light beam in an instant. It was no different from a stone falling into the sea. There was no further movement. That's it? Seeing this, Itsuka Kotori stared at Dustless angrily and said, Don't be nosy, this is between me and her. I don't want to be nosy. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori and said slowly, But I said before, this planet is my territory, did I allow you to fight? You. These words not only angered Itsuka Kotori, but Toichi Origami also frowned, this is too arrogant. However, recalling that it was Wu Qin who saved her, Yuani took back the words that were about to come out of her mouth. You what? If you don't agree or want to change my rules, then come at me. Looking at Itsuka Kotori's face, Wu Qin's tone was filled with disdain. Itsuka Kotori is too weak. Boom boom boom. Itsuka Kotori was clearly angered by Dustless's words. The golden flames around her lit up again, and they were even stronger than before. It was as if they were going to burn through the sky. Her body kept spitting out flames, and she was surrounded by a golden fireball. Gulp. Even Kitsune Origami felt a chill run down her spine, and her eyes were filled with fear. Humph. Seeing this, Dustless snorted coldly, his black pupils were swallowed by the red Sharingan, and the three Tomo eyes slowly rotated. Sleep for a while. Dustless glanced at Itsuka Kotori's body, then he didn't look at her anymore. Don't look down on people, losing once doesn't mean you will lose twice. Seeing that Dustless ignored her, Itsuka Kotori snorted and rushed toward him. Be careful, she's coming. It was rare for Origami Kitsune to remind Dustless. Her eyes were full of fear. After this battle, she had already understood the huge gap between ordinary humans and elves. Plop. However, before Itsuka Kotori could fly for long, her eyes suddenly rolled back, and she fell to the ground under the gaze of Toichi Origami. What did you do to me? Itsuka Kotori looked at Dustless with difficulty, and she tried to stand up again, but to her surprise the energy in her body was drained by some mysterious force, and she could only glare at Dustless. Despicable, fight me if you have the guts. Itsuka Kotori was so angry that she gritted her teeth, and she cursed Dustless for using such a despicable method to win. That's it. Toichi Origami's mouth twitched, such a powerful elf was knocked out by Dustless with a single glance, and he didn't even do anything. This was too ridiculous. She was like an extra in a movie, and as long as the plot was right, she could be killed at any time. You want to fight me with just you? Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori with pity and sighed. You can't even block my illusion, and it's the simplest kind, and you want to fight me? Kotori, there's a limit to your overestimation or you will become a laughingstock. Elves were powerful, but they weren't a threat to Dustless at all. They were in two completely different realms. No matter how strong a child was, they could only be beaten up by airplanes and cannons. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 auto subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2108. So powerful he killed the elf in an instant. Tabichi Origami's eyes were as bright as the stars. Even though she was a simple-minded person, she was looking at Dustless with admiration. He had only taken a casual glance at the fairy, and Itsuka Kotori found it extremely difficult to even stand up. Who else could do such a thing? Balrog, today is the day you die. Calming herself down, Tabichi Origami glared at Itsuka Kotori with hatred. She held a laser sword in her hand and walked over with a cold expression. The killing intent on her face was no joke. After all, because of Itsuka Kotori, her parents were burned to death. Their faces were unrecognizable, and not even their corpses were left behind. It was understandable that Tabichi Origami hated Itsuka Kotori. No one would be able to tolerate such a thing. In fact, if Dustless encountered the same fate as Origami Kite, he would have already chopped his enemies into pieces and ground their bones into ashes. I killed your parents? Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori also stared blankly at Tabichi Origami, who was glaring at her with hatred. Clearly she wasn't faking it. Even though Itsuka Kotori's memories of the past were blurry, she knew that she had done something terrible 5 years ago. She just couldn't recall it. Die. Swish. Swish. Recalling the tragic state of her parents, she swung the blade mercilessly at Kotori's head. Her head was about to be sliced open. 10,000 mammoth heavenly attraction. At this critical moment, there was a sudden suction force from behind. The majestic force forcefully pulled Toichi Origami away, and even his blade was sucked over. Plop. Being caught off guard, Yuichi Origami fell into Dustless's arms. Her body suddenly trembled, and a strange electric current flashed through her body. Her body suddenly became soft, and she didn't even have the strength to take revenge. Yuichi Origami, who had never had intimate contact with the opposite sex, suddenly blushed. She was quite cute, and the speed of her breathing became several times faster. It smells so good. I remember his name is Dustless. Is he really a man? Looking up at Dustless, Yuini Origami was also stunned for a while. It was the first time she met a man with such a fragrance. Brat, have you seen enough? Dustless glanced at her coldly. His simple words made Origami Kitsune shiver. Her small face was extremely embarrassed, and she quickly began to struggle. Why don't you let me go? Slow idiot, said Zhang Zian. Dustless just snorted in disdain. I didn't hug you at all. You threw yourself into my arms. You. Hearing this, Yuichi Origami's little face became even more embarrassed. She glanced at Dustless in annoyance and then flew backward, withdrawing from Dustless's arms as fast as she could. Why did you stop me from taking revenge? Yuichi Origami Kitsune looked at Dustless with anger brewing in her eyes. She pointed at Itsuka Kotori and shouted angrily. She killed my parents. Dustless didn't say anything. In fact, he didn't refute. The death of parents was a blood feud and no one could tolerate such a thing. But the premise was that Yuichi Origami's parents must be Itsuka Kotori. But the truth was not so. As a transmigrator, Dustless knew the truth of the past. Your parents? Carefully looking at Yuichi Origami Kitsune's face, Dustless remembered the truth of the past. He shook his head and said slowly. Kotori didn't kill them. I still remember the scene of the past. It's useless even if you want to clear her name now. Yuichi Origami Kitsune moved her lips and looked at Dustless expressionlessly. Seeing this, Dustless frowned slightly. Actually, the real murderer is... Just as he was about to say the real murderer, Dustless suddenly closed his mouth and told the truth. The blow to Yuichi Origami Kitsune was too cruel. She probably couldn't accept such a cruel blow. In fact, the real murderer of Yuichi Origami Kitsune's parents wasn't Itsuka Kotori, but Yuichi Origami Kitsune herself. But this kind of thing couldn't be explained clearly. It was too shocking for Yuichi Origami Kitsune, and she might even have a mental breakdown. Besides, Dustless didn't have any evidence that could convince Yuichi Origami Kitsune. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. This is the undeniable truth, and I have no reason to lie to you. Dustless said calmly. Then he changed the topic and said with a smile. Besides, who told you that your parents are dead? You're going off topic. It's no different from talking nonsense. Yuichi Origami Kitsune glared at Dustless. Her good impression of him disappeared instantly. This guy is getting better at talking nonsense. How could she remember this kind of thing wrongly? The scene of her parents being burned to death was still vivid in her mind. This unlucky child? Dustless couldn't help but sigh. Finally, he bowed his head and thought for a while. In short, you should go back. Your parents will go back safe and sound tonight. But, speaking of this, Dustless's tone became a lot lower. He said in a deep voice, although your parents didn't die, they were attacked and some of their memories faded a lot. Dustless decided to use Geto, reincarnation heavenly jutsu to resurrect Yuichi Origami Kitsune's parents. Anyway, they wouldn't be affected. Dustless's data was better than Uzumaki Nagato's. Take Obito Uchiha for example. She didn't die even after using Geto, reincarnation heavenly jutsu, let alone Dustless. After that, he would use dojitsu to erase the memories of Origami Kitsune's parents. As a result, this matter will inevitably come to an end. It may not be satisfactory, but it is the best ending. Are you serious? Yuichi Origami looked suspiciously at Dustless. He didn't look like he was lying at all. Of course, Dustless nodded and smiled mysteriously. When the time comes, don't be scared. In fact, they have been secretly living in this world, silently observing you. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more, 3,000 rewards plus more, 1,000 comments plus more, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more. Chapter 2109. Are you kidding me? Toichi Origami glared at Wu Qin. This fellow was full of nonsense. Her parents had been burned alive by Itsuka Kotori many years ago. How could they be resurrected? You don't have to lie to save me. Even though I've temporarily lost my memories, I do remember clearly that I've done something wrong in the past. Itsuka Kotori said in a daze. That's the truth. Wu Qin looked at Toshiichi Origami and said, I won't accuse people and I won't lie to a kid. Listen to me, go back now, your parents will come home tonight. Do you think you are a god? You can bring people back from the dead? Tabichi Origami was still skeptical. Dustless could reverse time and bring people back from the dead, but that was something only a god could do. Dustless laughed twice and joked, in my long life I have done too many professions. I have been a ninja, a pirate, a celestial dragon and a shinigami. In short, I have many professions. If you want me to become a god, I don't mind playing this new profession. You are crazy. Tabichi Origami frowned and looked at Dustless. She saw that he was smiling and was very confident. She thought to herself, with Dustless here I can't kill the Balrog. Tabichi Origami could see that Dustless and Itsuka Kotori's relationship wasn't simple. It was impossible for him to watch her kill people without doing anything. I will believe you this time. Taking a deep breath, Tabichi Origami stared at Itsuka Kotori. Even if she was dissatisfied, she held it in and said, Dustless, I can give you one night. But if you can't bring my parents home, I will still kill this woman. If you can't complete the task, you will have to give me her life. You still want to bargain with me? Dustless touched his chin and looked at the stubborn Tabichi Origami with interest. He waved his hand and said, Fine, 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 I will agree to your conditions. However, Itsuka Kotori's life is her own, I have no right to decide. Then isn't this a loss for me? This kind of agreement has no advantages or benefits for me. Yuichi Origami coldly snorted. Wasn't this just trying to gain something without risking anything? You little girl? Wu Qin sighed. Sure enough, the ignorant were fearless. After living for a few hundred years, he had encountered various kinds of ambitious and ruthless people, who dared to bargain with him. How about this, if I can't complete the task, I will give you my life. Looking at Yuichi Origami seriously, Wu Qin smiled and said seriously. His tone was magnanimous and natural as if he was talking about something trivial. Are you crazy? Itsuka Kotori and Tabichi Origami exclaimed at the same time. Both of them widened their eyes and looked at Dustless in disbelief. This guy was gambling with his life. Especially Yuan-e Origami, it seemed especially absurd. Her parents were clearly dead and she had seen it with her own eyes. Yet, Wu Qin still insisted that Yuan-e Origami's parents should go home tonight. If they didn't come back, they would rather be killed. Wasn't this retarded? Dustless. Compared to Tabichi Origami, Itsuka Kotori was extremely touched. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and her pink eyes were also dotted with tears. For her, Dustless was willing to give up his life and Tabichi Origami's life, which really touched Itsuka Kotori. This guy. On the other side, Murasame Rain, who was usually in a trance and looked very weak, looked at Dustless in a daze, and the sound of excitement could be heard through the mini headphones in her ears. Commander's favorability to Dustless reached 100% in an instant. It was only about 20% to 30% before, but this time it soared to 100%. It's a miracle. Hearing the report in the headphones, Murasame Rain was quite calm. If it was her favorability to Dustless would also rise to this level. This was completely a date with his life, not an act. Itsuka Kotori was touched by Dustless, and it was normal for her favorability to reach 100%. Not everyone had the courage to gamble with their own life for the lives of others. I hope you don't regret it. Tabichi Origami took a deep look at Dustless, and after a few seconds of silence she looked at Itsuka Kotori and turned away. Her eyes were quite complicated, there was hatred, jealousy, and envy. Are you serious? Seeing Tabichi Origami left, Itsuka Kotori stood up and walked to Dustless and hurriedly asked, I didn't ask you to gamble with your own life. And this bet is really? Itsuka Kotori opened her mouth but found it hard to speak. This matter had nothing to do with Wu Qin, but he was willing to bet his own life. If he lost, he would definitely die. Itsuka Kotori was extremely touched by Wu Qin's actions, no matter if he was hot-headed or thinking twice before acting. Of course I'm serious. Dustless stretched his body lazily, yawned lazily and smiled. I may die in the future, but at least at this moment, I haven't lived enough, and I don't plan to die for the time being. You can really let Tabichi Origami's parents go home at night? Itsuka Kotori bit her lower lip and looked at Dustless nervously. If they couldn't go back, Dustless would lose his life. Didn't I tell you? I won't gamble with my life and I don't want to die for the time being. Since I promised, I can do it. Staring into Itsuka Kotori's eyes, Wu Chen's eyes shone like the moon in the sky. Kotori fell into a daze. I'll leave for a while. Dustless turned around and left. It seemed like he was going to revive Tabichi Origami's parents. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:10. Looking at Dustless's back, both Rain Murasame and Kotori had a complicated feeling, and they both stared at Dustless in a daze. As for Itsuka Kotori, her heart was filled with warmth and gratitude. She was surprised that Wu Chen was willing to gamble with his life. She was even caught off guard, and her favorability towards Wu Chen rose to a shocking 100%. As for Murasame Rain, she was full of admiration. Being able to make Itsuka Kotori's favorability rise to 100% in an instant, Murasame Rain really admired Dustless. Commander, what's our next plan? After stabilizing her emotions, Rain Murasame looked at Kotori. The next plan. Kotori pondered for a while. Itsuka Kotori thought for a moment. She had regained her rationality after Wu Chen's antics. She said wisely, protect Wu Chen for now. Don't let him get hurt. Although Shido was injured before, Kotori wasn't worried. It wasn't that Kotori underestimated Shido's life, but because Shido sealed Kotori's ability a long time ago, so he got Kotori's recovery ability as an elf, so he wouldn't be in any danger. On the other hand, Kotori was afraid that Dustless wouldn't be able to complete the mission. If he took the initiative to die, everything would be over. This kind of primitive exchange wasn't worth it. After all, this matter had nothing to do with Dustless. Time flew by and it was evening in the blink of an eye. At this moment, in Tabichi Origami's home, the silver-haired girl was sitting on the sofa, looking at the TV with dull eyes. She was like a lifeless statue. How dare he gamble? Is he not afraid of death? Tabichi Origami repeated this sentence for almost the entire afternoon. She couldn't figure out where Dustless got his confidence from, and he even dared to gamble with his life. After all, the scene of her parents being burned alive was still vivid in her mind. Even now, when she recalled it, her chest would hurt. However, Dustless said that her parents were still alive and would let them go home at night. This was complete nonsense. Let's see what kind of ridiculous excuse this guy will use to get away with it. Yuichi Origami turned off the TV. When she was about to take a shower, the sound of knocking on the door suddenly attracted her. Dustless? Tokichi Origami frowned and then went to open the door in slippers. Crick. As expected, what entered his eyes was indeed Wu Chen, who was grinning from ear to ear. Where is he? Where are my parents? Yuichi Origami poked her head out and looked around. She found that there was no one around. Not to mention her parents, there was not even a stray cat. Not yet. Shrugging, Dustless calmly stepped into Tokichi Origami's house. He casually looked around, not minding that this was a girl's house at all. You are really not polite at all. Turning her head and glancing at Dustless, who was wandering around, Tokichi Origami's mouth twitched twice. After immediately closing the door, she asked very impolitely, Where are my parents? You said you would bring them over tonight. Haven't you noticed yet? They're already here. Dustless suddenly smiled mysteriously. They're here? Tokichi Origami looked at Dustless suspiciously, and immediately looked around with expectation. There was no one in the big room, it was as quiet as a dead hell. Are you playing with me? Tokichi Origami asked angrily. However, in the next second, a sudden change occurred. Tokichi Origami, who originally planned to find Dustless to settle the score, suddenly looked at the miraculous scene in front of her. Impossible, how can you do this kind of thing? Tokichi Origami asked in disbelief. Even because of excessive shock, her voice was a bit sharp. A ripple appeared in the space and two holes appeared. Then two young bodies slowly floated out of them. Father and mother? Wiping her eyes, Tokichi Origami suddenly saw her parents, whom she had not seen for many years. Her nose was sour and she almost couldn't help but cry. Looking at the two intact people, Tokichi Origami stared at the mysterious monster in front of her in horror. A few years ago, Tokichi Origami's parents were burned alive by flames. Their bodies were not even left behind. When they were found, they had already become unrecognizable black charcoal. Dustless now used a heaven-defying method to restore the two of them. Their appearance was clearly distinguishable. Touching their bodies, there was still a cold temperature and delicate skin unique to humans. Tokichi Origami thought that they were plastic people. "What method did you use to restore my parents' bodies?" Tokichi Origami asked curiously. In fact, the moment she saw the two bodies, her heart was already full of gratitude to Dustless. Her parents, who were burned to black charcoal, were perfectly restored by Dustless as if they were asleep. In fact, at this moment, Tokichi Origami's dislike of Dustless in the past disappeared. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2111. Staring at the shocked girl, Dustless's reaction was flat, and he explained as if talking to himself, "It's very simple as Jubi, my vitality is extremely huge. I just used my cells as the basis to reconstruct your parents' bodies. That's all, it's very simple." Very simple. Tabichi Origami stared at Dustless in a daze for a long time, then she asked in a shocked voice, Are you an alien? Can this kind of thing be done by humans?" Tabichi Origami was speechless and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Especially when she looked at Dustless's relaxed face, she was even more shocked and numb. Such a heaven-defying method was like a magic trick or a game for Dustless. "Didn't I say before, I occasionally play the role of a god? It's normal to be able to do this kind of thing." Dustless shrugged his shoulders and immediately glanced at Tabichi Origami, and waved his hand, "I'm going to resurrect them now, please stay away." Dustless has already done something to the bodies. Even if they are resurrected now, Origami's parents won't remember the memory of being killed by Tabichi Origami. Go. When she heard Dustless say the word resurrect, Tabichi Origami's heart was in her throat, and she couldn't help but sob up and down. She looked at Dustless in horror and asked excitedly, "Can you really do that kind of thing?" "Of course I can do it, I often use that technique, it's just a small matter." Dustless nodded affirmatively and immediately smiled. "What's more, if I can't do it, I will have to pay with my life. I told you before, I haven't lived enough, it's too early to die now." Tabichi Origami didn't comment, and immediately took 2 steps back. Dustless didn't waste time seeing this, his right eye instantly turned into Reincarnation Sharingan, and he made a hand sign and shouted, "Outer Path, Reincarnation. Kakaka." The void suddenly exploded, and then a large mass of green light pierced through the dark crack and landed on Tokichi Origami's parents. The green light was like specks of starlight, but also like liquid water. The moment it entered the two corpses, some redness appeared on their originally pale faces, and their fingers also began to move gently. "Thank you, Dustless. Where are you?" Ueni Origami, who was about to thank Dustless, helplessly found that Dustless had disappeared from her sight. "We've finally dealt with this big problem." Under the dim illumination of the street lamps, Dustless strolled alone on the path at night. He stretched his waist lazily with a tired look on his face. Although performing Samsara of Heaven didn't affect him much, Dustless felt a little tired. It seems that you're very tired." A soft voice suddenly entered Dustless's ears, and his body suddenly froze. He subconsciously looked over, and a cute and delicate girl appeared in front of him. "Tokisaki Kurumi? Why are you here again?" Dustless frowned and said coldly. This is the 3rd time Tokisaki Kurumi came to find him. "I came to find you with good intentions, but you showed a disgusted and disappointed expression. Do you dislike me that much?" Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with resentment, and there was a trace of jealousy in her words. "You weren't like this when you were with Tokichi Origami. Is the gap between us that big? You went to see Origami?" Dustless narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. "This Tokisaki Kurumi is a famous homicidal maniac. Yes, not only did I see her, but I also witnessed the process of you reviving her parents. Really, I thought you were just bluffing, but I didn't expect you to be able to do such a thing." Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with admiration. Her expression was exaggerated, as if she had discovered a new continent, and her words were full of admiration. Reviving people from the dead? Not even humans or elves had such a powerful ability. "Cut the crap, tell me your purpose." Dustless waved his hand, and looked at Tokisaki Kurumi with an impatient expression. When this person came to find him, it was always an impending disaster, and nothing good ever came out of it. Dustless even labeled Tokisaki Kurumi as a jinx in his heart. I heard that your ability is the same as Itsuka Shido. How about this, let's combine? After a moment of silence, Tokisaki Kurumi became more and more satisfied, and finally gave an answer that made Dustless furious. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:12. Do you think we can combine just because you say so? Who do you think you are? You want to combine with me? Dustless's eyes flickered as the corner of his mouth curled up. He seemed to be tempted by Tokisaki Kurumi's suggestion. There's a chance. Seeing Dustless's interest, Tokisaki Kurumi licked her lips and exhaled deeply. Her eyes lit up as she stared at Dustless. Ever since she witnessed Dustless's strength, Tokisaki Kurumi's desire to possess Dustless grew. At the same time, she also knew that Dustless had the same ability as Itsuka Shido. Since she already had Dustless, what was the use of Itsuka Shido? Maybe if she could combine with someone as strong as Dustless, her strength would increase even more. No matter how she looked at it, it was more worth it than Itsuka Shido. Enlighten me? If I had known earlier, I would have killed Itsuka Shido. Recalling Itsuka Shido's arrogant words, Tokisaki Kurumi's lips curled into a mocking smile. Itsuka Shido said he would save her. He really didn't know how to write the word death. Looking at Dustless, Tokisaki Kurumi's mind became active. She suggested with a bewitching tone. There are many benefits if we combine. Why don't we combine with others? At least we can gain strength. Gain my ass. Dustless looked at Tokisaki Kurumi coldly. Ignoring her dazed expression, he circled around her. Are you crazy? Do you have any value in combining with me? After Tokisaki Kurumi's face turned green, Wuxia said lazily, in this world there are as many people who want to sleep with me as there are sand in the Ganges. You're one of them. Who wants to sleep with you? Stop flattering yourself. We're just taking what we want. Tokisaki Kurumi was so infuriated by Dustless that she wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She looked at Dustless in a frenzy. The fusion she mentioned was not what Dustless understood. What I'm saying is, just as Tokisaki Kurumi was about to explain herself, Dustless rudely interrupted her. Isn't that what you mean? That's great. It means that you can still be saved. You know what it means to love yourself and know your own worth. You don't deserve me. I originally thought that rottenwood couldn't be carved, but it seems that I was wrong. Diske, I didn't expect that even rottenwood could shine one day. It's a miracle. Dustless sighed to himself. You bastard. Dare say that again? Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless and gritted her teeth. Her lungs were about to explode from anger. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? When Tokisaki Kurumi realized that she had bumped into Dustless, she was so angry that she wanted to tear this guy apart. It was fine if he was narcissistic, but the most shameless thing was that he kept comparing Tokisaki Kurumi to himself. How shameless. Go to hell. In her anger, Tokisaki Kurumi activated her ability and aimed her black gun at Dustless. You want to start a fight because of a disagreement? Dustless casually glanced at Tokisaki Kurumi and said lazily, Miss Tokisaki, although I don't like to beat up women, there's a bottom line to everything. Tokisaki Kurumi felt as if she had been electrocuted. She subconsciously lowered her weapon as she recalled the times when Dustless suppressed her. She subconsciously lowered her weapon. Come find me when you thought it through. Dustless didn't even look at Tokisaki Kurumi and left resolutely. Even though Itsuka Kotori's house was razed to the ground due to the fierce battle, a brand new house was built in no time. It was even bigger than the previous one. After returning home, Wuxia hurriedly washed his face and rinsed his mouth. Then he went upstairs to sleep. You're such a lazy fella. You'll get indigestion if you sleep right after eating. Itsuka Kotori glanced at Wuxia with her watery eyes and muttered coldly. Perhaps she didn't realize that there was a gentleness in her eyes when she looked at Dustless. Previously, Tokichi Origami came to visit and thanked Dustless for saving her parents. This resolved the grudge between Itsuka Kotori and Tokichi Origami. As a result, Kotori's impression of Dustless had reached 100%. I've always been a lazy person. Training doesn't suit me. Wuxia just shrugged his shoulders, revealing a hopeless expression. Any kind of training was superfluous to him. Time flew by and it was already late at night. Ugh. At night, Wuxia turned over her body. She was lying in the warm bedding. She turned over and closed her eyes. She said in a vague voice, "Really, why did the bed suddenly become smaller?" Perhaps it was an illusion, but Dustless suddenly found the bed, which used to be spacious, to be a little cramped. "Why is your reaction so slow?" In the darkness, a blurry figure crawled on Dustless's bed. Seeing his sleepy handsome face, she grumbled unhappily, "Isn't this guy's senses very sharp? How can he not notice me? Or is it because I don't exist?" The young girl stared at Wu Chen's thin lips. Her face was flushed red and was very cute, like a ripe apple. "You're lucky." After hesitating for a while, the girl finally lowered her head and gently kissed Wu Chen's lips with a red and cute face. "It's warm and cold?" Wu Chen murmured unconsciously when he was suddenly attacked. Naturally, he noticed it at the first moment. His closed eyes suddenly opened. "Little girl, it's fine if you don't sleep in the middle of the night, but how dare you sneak attack me? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 21:13. Even with the cover of the night, the girl's perfect appearance couldn't be concealed. Her fair skin gave off a wild beauty in the dark. Perhaps due to the sudden awakening of Dustless, the girl's eyes were empty and gloomy. She stared at Dustless with a blank expression. Her mind was in a mess and she was stunned on the spot. "Coterie?" Dustless blurted out. It would have been better if he didn't say it, but as soon as he said it, Coterie's face turned red. Cough cough cough. Coterie coughed twice. She was only wearing simple white pajamas, and her fair legs were exposed to the air. Even though it was dark, Dustless could still see them clearly. "She's young, but her body is quite good. If I remember correctly, Coterie is only 12 years old." Dustless muttered to himself. At the same time, he looked at the girl's embarrassed expression and guessed what was going on. "She wants to borrow my power to seal herself." Dustless knew Coterie's personality well. She was definitely the arrogant type. She didn't think he was charming enough to make her fall in love with him at all costs. Let's make the act real. Looking at the girl's clear eyes, they were as bright as the moon, pure and sincere. People say that the eyes are the window to the soul, and this window in front of him made him unable to reject it. Although Shido also had the ability to seal elves, Dustless guessed that the reason why he didn't choose that weak kid was because Shido was attacked by Tokusaki Kurumi and was traumatized. He had developed a serious phobia toward elves and knew that his sister was an elf. It was inevitable that there would be a rift in their sibling relationship. "If I want to seal a fairy's power, I need her to be shy." Looking at the girl's blushing face, Dustless's indifferent eyes showed a rare trace of gentleness, but it quickly disappeared. He smiled confidently in his heart. "It's just making a girl shy. Too easy." "Hee hee, you have a reason? I don't believe you. You're just trying to take advantage of me. I want to get my money back." A wicked smile appeared on Dustless's cold face. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he scanned Coterie's body. He seemed to be thinking about where to start. You better not mess around. I didn't take advantage of you." Itsuka Coterie quickly moved away from Wu Chen's body. She felt uncomfortable being stared at by Wu Chen's invasive gaze. It was as if she was naked. Her entire body was exposed to his gaze. Although she had ambushed Dustless just now, the sad thing was that she didn't feel shy at all. She could still feel the power of the elves in her body. She could only maintain this state for 2 days. After 2 days, Itsuka Coterie might forget about the present and turn back into the violent fire spirit. "You want to borrow my power to seal myself?" Dustless looked at Itsuka Coterie with a wicked smile and said, "If that's the case, I can let bygones be bygones." Itsuka Coterie was overjoyed. Although she could see that Dustless's smile was very cunning, she still nodded. "I'm very sorry. Maybe it's a bit abrupt, but I really just want to seal my power." Dustless just smiled and asked lazily, "So, did you seal your power?" "No." Itsuka Coterie's eyes were dim and she looked very disappointed. "Since you kissed me without sealing your power, it means that you took advantage of me." Wu Chen looked at Itsuka Coterie shamelessly and said, "If that's the case, I'm going to get it back." Bensho Tensei. Dustless used his Rinnegan ability, and under the inertia of gravity, although Itsuka Coterie struggled, she was still taken into Dustless's arms. Puff. Being taken into Dustless's arms, Itsuka Coterie felt like she was electrocuted, and her strength was inexplicably sucked away. She looked up at Dustless's playful eyes, and her body trembled slightly. Smells so good. The elegant fragrance suddenly rushed into her nose, and Itsuka Kotori's beautiful eyes were suddenly in a trance. It was hard to imagine that a man who looked like a sloppy man could have such a nice smell, and it was intoxicating. You're really greedy. You took advantage of me again. Seeing the intoxicated Itsuka Kotori, Dustless showed his white teeth, and with a teasing look on his face, he suddenly raised his hand to slap her. I didn't. Dustless's words were like a basin of cold water, and Itsuka Kotori instantly woke up. Looking at the raised hand, a bad premonition flashed in her heart. You're too young to learn good things, you must be punished. Dustless suddenly turned Itsuka Kotori's body around, and very skillfully pulled down her white skin a little bit, and her white skin was like a flawless jade. Dustless decisively slapped Itsuka Kotori, and instantly there was a dark red palm print. Itsuka Kotori was like a frightened white rabbit, her heartbeat accelerated and she let out a frightened scream, but it sounded soft and powerless, and it was like a disguised request. Damn it. Itsuka Kotori's whole face was red, and she was sweating, and her small hands were clenched tightly. She didn't expect that she would be so weak. How dare you attack me? How dare you take advantage of me again? In the next few minutes, Dustless mercilessly slapped Itsuka Kotori a few more times. Itsuka Kotori's face was as red as hot iron, and her watery eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She turned her head to look at the red area where Dustless slapped, and wanted to find a hole to hide in. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 21:14. It's about time. Looking at the girl's red cheeks, Wuxia smiled faintly. He knew that the time had come. He stared at Itsuka Kotori, who was blushing. Wuxia also stopped hitting her. Even though it was only a few minutes, Itsuka Kotori lowered her head, afraid to look at Dustless. She must be shy. If it was a normal person who dared to hit her like this, with Itsuka Kotori's personality, she would have turned into an angel and torn the person apart. But now, Dustless was Itsuka Kotori's savior, and her favorability towards Dustless had reached 100%. You stopped. Itsuka Kotori was surprised to find that Dustless had stopped hitting her. She didn't know why, but she didn't feel happy. Instead, she felt a sense of melancholy. Itsuka Kotori didn't know why, but she didn't say it out loud. Don't think that this is the end. Dustless, I won't let you go so easily. Itsuka Kotori looked at Dustless and gritted her teeth. She looked very angry. After all, being hit on the butt was something that any girl would find hard to accept. She might even hate the person who hit her butt for the rest of her life. However, Wuxia turned a deaf ear to her. He leaned over and pressed Itsuka Kotori onto the bedding. What are you doing? Being pressed down by Dustless, Itsuka Kotori asked in fear. Huff 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 huff. Because the two were so close, Itsuka Kotori could even smell Dustless's breath. The warm breath blew on her cheeks, and the blush on her face turned even redder. The time is right. Dustless stared at Itsuka Kotori's face that was inches away from his. His whole body pressed down on her, and he could even feel her racing heartbeat. Finally, under Itsuka Kotori's shocked gaze, Dustless kissed her. Itsuka Kotori stared blankly at Dustless. Her mind went blank. She didn't expect Dustless to be so daring. Woo 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 woo. After being stunned for a moment, Itsuka Kotori suddenly struggled. However, her weak strength was nothing compared to Dustless. She was simply too weak. Dustless even stroked her on purpose. Soon, Itsuka Kotori's breathing quickened, and her body temperature rose rapidly. She subconsciously obeyed Dustless. Boom boom boom. Itsuka Kotori's body suddenly shone with a bright white light. Immediately afterward, a large amount of energy surged out of her body and silently entered Dustless's body. The speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the power in Itachi Kodo was completely drained. Soon after, the pajamas on her body also disappeared. Okay. Dustless immediately moved away from the girl's lips when he felt Kotori's power entering his body. Okay. After the two separated, Itsuka Kotori regained her consciousness. She gritted her teeth. After their lips parted, Dustless's lustful handsome face returned to its usual coldness. Could it be, you were faking it just now? Itsuka Kotori looked directly into Wuxia's eyes and asked in a perturbed manner, Did you purposely make that expression of lust for me in order to seal away my fairy power? So what if I did and so what if I didn't? Dustless asked calmly. His tone was completely different from before. He sensed the power in his body and said slowly, "Just like you said, we both took what we needed." Itsuka Kotori's heart felt empty after hearing this. Although she was glad that her power was sealed, the words, "we both took what we needed," still hurt her. "Little girl?" Dustless looked at the disappointed Itsuka Kotori and teased, "Don't tell me you like me? What a sin." Itsuka Kotori put her hands on her hips and said arrogantly, "Even if all the men in the world died, I wouldn't consider you. You sure are stubborn." Dustless rolled his eyes and said with a sigh, "Also don't know who was the one who was delirious with emotion just now and almost fainted over. You're asking for it." Itsuka Kotori's face turned red and kicked at Qin Xiaobei. Blah. Who would have thought that Dustless would be able to dodge her leg easily with a god-tier skill? He then flipped over and pressed Kotori onto the bed again. "Little girl?" Dustless moved closer to Itsuka Kotori. They looked into each other's eyes. Then Dustless raised his right hand. "Don't do anything stupid." Itsuka Kotori was very nervous. She thought that Dustless was going to spank her again. She cursed in her heart, "This bastard, he's going to take advantage of me again. He's the one who likes me." But just when Itsuka Kotori thought that Dustless was going to spank her again, Dustless raised his right hand and pointed at the closed door. "Go out, I won't send you off. Good night." Dustless then pushed Itsuka Kotori away and closed his eyes in satisfaction. He said, "You've disturbed me for a while. Don't disturb my sleep." Itsuka Kotori's mouth twitched and almost vomited blood. She was naked, but this bastard was looking at her with disdain. She was pissed again. "You want me to leave? I'm not leaving. I'm going to sleep here tonight. I'm going to snatch your bed and sleep with your woman. Remember this, bastard, this is my home." Dustless's words angered Itsuka Kotori. She was like an exploding barrel of gunpowder, glaring at Dustless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:15. Itsuka Kotori's eyes were burning with fire. Her already deep red eyes were now even redder, as if they were blood red. It was clear that she was furious with Dustless. "Do you think I will leave just because you told me to? No way." Itsuka Kotori put her hands on her hips. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger and dissatisfaction. This was her home, and Dustless, an outsider, had chased her away time and time again. How despicable. "Tiske tisk." Dustless opened his eyes again and said with a smile, "You are quite ambitious. You want to sleep with me and you want to sleep with me. If this isn't love, then what is? For a violent girl like you, having too much charm is not a good thing." "You win. Just wait and see." Itsuka Kotori was speechless. She cursed him in her mind. In the end he glared fiercely at Wuxia. Then he turned around and left in indignation. He helplessly discovered that he was far from being Wuxia's opponent in terms of strength or bickering. If he continued to stay, he would only bring disgrace upon himself. Bang. Itsuka Kotori kicked the door open and walked out of Dustless's room in a huff. She didn't go back to her own room. Instead she went to take a shower. "Don't fall into my hands." Itsuka Kotori mumbled as she walked away. Dustless had given her quite a blow. That despicable guy doesn't know how to read people's minds. Itsuka Kotori lay in the warm pool and stared at the ceiling. She was silent for a while, then a strange smile appeared on her face. Or does Dustless have a problem in that area? He didn't even look at my naked body. He even looked at me with disdain. Despicable guy, am I that despicable? Here, Itsuka Kotori touched her face and looked at her reflection in the water. Her perfect facial features were flawless. It must be Dustless's problem, which is why he can look at me so calmly. After much consideration, Itsuka Kotori concluded that it was Dustless's problem. It must be a physical defect. If Dustless knew that Kotori dared to make up stories about him like this, he would definitely teach her a lesson. He had to admit that women were strange creatures. When you took the initiative to pay attention to them, you would think that they were up to no good. If you ignored them, they would think that you were looking down on them. Sometimes they were really unreasonable. On the other hand, Dustless had just sent Itsuka Kotori away and was about to have a good night's sleep when an unexpected intruder came to visit him. Blah. Compared to Itsuka Kotori, this intruder was much braver. She jumped down from the sky and landed on Dustless's bed. Due to the strength of this sudden attack, Dustless's bed was crushed. Is there an end to this? Wuxia raised his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He stared at the perfect body in front of him and rubbed his temples. Did you go to the wrong place? 10 Fragrance. If you want to take a bath, you should go to the bathroom. The young girl that entered his eyes was Night Blade God 10 Fragrances. However, what gave him a headache was that the current her was only wearing a simple bathrobe. Her white skin was in full view. I just saw Coterie leave your room. What unspeakable secrets did you two do? Nightsword God 10 Fragrance glared at Dustless. His cheeks were puffed up and his gem-like eyes were filled with a strong desire to possess Dustless. Dustless recalled his previous experience and said lazily, "It's nothing. Coterie was just trying to take advantage of me by kissing me secretly." Blah. However, as soon as Dustless finished speaking, Toka pounced on him. Her body was like a snake and she skillfully twisted with Dustless. Not only that, she also touched Dustless. Her restless hands touched all over Dustless's body. She even carefully touched some important places through his pajamas. Why are there so many female perverts these days? Dustless's mouth twitched. He felt helpless. Ever since he tamed Toka, this innocent girl had developed a strong sense of dependence on him. She clung to Dustless all day long. "Don't touch me. Get your hands off me." Perceiving that the most important place had been attacked, even with Dustless's calm disposition, his face collapsed. That place was not to be touched casually. "Coterie kissed you." Toka pouted and complained, "What's wrong with me touching you? This can improve our relationship. Don't tell me you hate me? Who told you all this nonsense?" When Wu Qin heard this, he was speechless to the extreme. "It's okay to enhance feelings, but do you have to touch me indiscriminately?" Wu Qin was also secretly conflicted about this. Yidao Shintoka was too naive, and the school was quite a lively place. There were many fujoshis around her. "Don't touch me." Seeing that the girl didn't know when to back off, Wu Chen's tone inevitably became more serious and even carried a hint of reprimand. Night Blade God 10 Fragrance's body suddenly trembled slightly and stopped moving. She looked at Wu Chen pitifully. "Don't you hate me?" "You just misunderstood," Dustless replied calmly. "Hehe, if you don't, prove it now." Toka's eyes flashed with slyness. She giggled and pounced on Dustless again. This time she pressed down on Dustless. Her eyes flickered with a terrifying green light. She waved her arms and even wanted to hold Dustless in her arms. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:16. Caught off guard, Dustless was hugged tightly. Night Sword God Tosin also squeezed hard, as if she wanted to merge Dustless into her body. The sudden attack was inexplicable, and Wu Chen was also a little stuffy for a moment. Her eyes were fixed on Night Blade God 10 Fragrance until her breathing became difficult, and the girl then turned her head. Staring at the perfect silhouette in front of him, Dustless said unhappily, "Tosin, if you really like me, you should let me go immediately." Night Sword God Tosin was stunned at first, then asked in confusion, "It's because I care about you that we should get closer, right? That's what the people in school said. So it was those fujoshis who taught you that." Hearing this, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that there was a weird fujoshis trio in Lichon High School. In the original work, they were the ones who came up with ideas to help Tosin conquer Gohei Shido. "But you're about to strangle me." Dustless's breathing became unnatural. His cheeks were slightly red and filled with embarrassment. He looked at Night Sword God Tosin speechlessly. "Sorry, I'll let go now." Night Sword God Tosin smiled embarrassedly and quickly let go of Dustless. She scratched her head and smiled. "I was too excited just now and only cared about you, so I forgot. It won't be like this next time." Dustless just rolled his eyes. If he was a normal human, he would probably be dead now. After all, Night Sword God Tosin hadn't sealed the power of the elves yet. Her power was unreliable. "Cut the crap. Tell me what you want." Dustless waved his hand and stared at Night Sword God Tosin, who was only wearing a bathrobe. Since this little girl wasn't here to take a bath, then she must have some other purpose for coming to him in a bathrobe. "Can't I come to you for no reason?" Night Blade God 10 Fragrance looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction. Her big watery eyes stared at Dustless. Dustless could hear the deep resentment in her words clearly. Her beautiful eyes stared at Dustless. Finally, Night Blade God 10 Fragrance smiled and hugged Dustless's right arm. "Let's sleep together. It's more intimate." "Cordial?" Dustless rolled his eyes when he heard this. He was sure that someone else had instigated Night Sword God Toka to do this. Such an innocent girl was easily tricked. That's enough. You still need to go to school tomorrow. Go back to sleep now. Dustless stared unblinkingly at the young girl who was crawling on top of him. Being pressed down, he couldn't help but feel a little strange in his heart. Are you looking down on me? You were fine when you were with Coterie, so why did you change your mind when it came to me? Also, you said before that Coterie kissed you. No. Night Blade God 10 Fragrance looked at Dustless with a mischievous smile. Her eyes were shining. She pointed at her own face and said in an abnormally serious tone, "You have to kiss me too." Hearing this, Dustless looked at Night Blade God 10 Fragrance with even more hesitation. He knew that this girl was very aggressive and wouldn't give up easily until she achieved her goal. If he wasn't willing to submit, she definitely wouldn't leave. Thus, after a slight hesitation, Dustless raised his head slightly and pressed his lips against hers. Everything happened so suddenly that Night Blade God 10 Fragrance looked at Wuxia blankly. She stared blankly at the face that was so close to her. Seconds turned into minutes. Soon, Night Blade God 10 Fragrance felt her body temperature rise. Her small face was bright red, and a nameless fire spread in her body. Night Blade God 10 Fragrance clenched her small hands tightly. Her heartbeat sped up, and she didn't dare to look at Dustless's eyes. Buzz buzz buzz. At the same time, a huge white light suddenly swept across Night Blade God 10 Fragrance's body. It was very dazzling, and a huge cocoon of light emitted a holy aura. Dustless slightly narrowed his eyes. Thinking back to the scene just now, he couldn't help but sigh. He was about to move away from Night Blade God 10 Fragrance's lips, but he lowered his body and kissed Night Blade God 10 Fragrance's lips again. This huge cocoon of light emitting a holy aura was exactly the same as the one that appeared on Coterie God 10 Fragrance's body. It was the precursor to sealing the elf's power. It also meant that Night Blade God 10 Fragrance was very shy at this moment. She was in the best state to seal her power. Dustless only needed to add a little more fuel to the fire to completely seal her power. Thinking for a moment, Dustless's hands gently moved over 10 Fragrance's body. He gently untied her bathrobe and touched her snow-white skin. "No, don't touch me. I feel very uncomfortable. It's like I'm burning up." Night Blade God 10 Fragrance's eyes were hazy as she protested. However, Dustless didn't care at all. He continued to do what he wanted, unscrupulously invading the young girl's body. He didn't let go of a single inch of her skin. Night Blade God 10 Fragrance trembled uncontrollably where Dustless touched. Her breathing sped up and she let out a faint moan. Her body was soft, and even if she wanted to push Dustless away, she didn't have the extra strength. This state didn't last long. Night Blade God 10 Fragrance's power flowed through their lips and into Dustless's body. Bang. Time passed quickly, and after 5 or 6 seconds the light cocoon on Toka's body exploded, revealing the girl's cute body. Just like when Coterie was sealed, Toka's clothes were gone as well. Damn it! After a long while their lips parted. Dustless was the first to sigh. However, he didn't expect his words to anger the shy 10 Fragrance. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:17. You dare to say that you want my life? How dare you, you little brat. You clearly took advantage of me, yet you say that you want my life. Very well, you have really angered me this time, Dustless. Night Sword God 10 Fragrance stared at Dustless with an extremely unfriendly gaze. Her snow-white arms were tightly gripping Dustless, and her eyes were filled with an ominous aura. It felt as if she wanted to tear Dustless apart alive. That's right. I have worked hard to seal your powers. Don't you think that I have to suffer? I even have to accompany you in your nonsense in the middle of the night. Dustless nodded indifferently. He was not afraid of 10 Fragrance's greedy eyes at all. He said leisurely, "Moreover, sealing the powers of fairies is extremely troublesome. I have to make all of you feel embarrassed. What a chore. Poor me, this skinny body of mine has to be ravaged by you." Dustless complained bitterly, like a little wife who had been bullied. Night Sword God 10 Fragrance was furious. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? In all fairness, Dustless was not good at dating. After all, he was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. Anyone would find it strange to take the initiative to hit on a teenage girl and go on a date with her. How dare you say that kissing me is a chore? Apologize to me or I will beat you up. Night Sword God 10 fragrance rudely threw Dustless away. She crossed her arms in front of her and said proudly, "Kissing me is a blessing that you have accumulated over 8 lifetimes." Dustless smiled and stared at the arrogant girl. Her voluptuous body was impeccable, as if it was sculpted by the heavens. Although she was still very young, only 17 years old, Dustless could not find any flaws. The places that should be protruding were definitely not flat. "Apologize to me now." Night Sword God 10 fragrance sat naked on top of Dustless. She raised her fist and repeated her words in a threatening tone. She stared at Dustless covetously as if she was not done yet. You want me to apologize to you? Dream on." Dustless curled his lips in disdain. Soon after, he stared playfully at the exquisite and translucent body. Suddenly, he pointed out the window and said, "Look, the plane carrying soybean flour and bread is coming." These words seemed to be filled with endless magic, and Yadao Shintoxiang's gaze immediately shifted over. "You tricked me?" Night Blade God Toka snorted and looked out the window for a long time. She didn't see the plane carrying soybean flour bread, and she had never heard of a plane carrying soybean flour bread. After thinking about it for a while, Yadao God Toxiang realized that he had been tricked by Dustless. Pa***. Just as he was about to teach Dustless a lesson, Night Blade God Toxiang suddenly felt a sharp pain. He looked down and saw 2 snow-white peaks the size of bowls swaying back and forth. There was also a clear handprint on them. "Damn pervert, I'm going to kill you." Tokisaki Kurumi clenched her teeth in anger, and her face turned red. It was fine if Dustless didn't admit his mistake, but what was worse was that he dared to attack her. He didn't put her in his eyes at all. "There are too many people who want to kill me. Even if they lined up, they wouldn't be able to wait for you." Dustless snorted disapprovingly and raised his right hand again. Pa***. This time, there was also a bright red handprint on Night Blade God Toxiang's long white legs. She clenched her teeth in pain, and the fire in her heart burned even more fiercely. "If you act rashly again, it will be there next time." Dustless chuckled, and his expression was as vulgar as it could be. He stared at the most important part of a woman, and his narrowed eyes were as sharp as a blade. Night Blade God Toxiang felt a chill run down her spine. "Just you wait, damn pervert. Next time, I'll hang you up and beat you up so badly that even your parents won't recognize you." Night Blade God Toxiang glared at Dustless fiercely, and fled in a sorry state. In the dark room, Dustless was the only one left. "I finally scared them away. It wasn't easy for me. They're really a bunch of living ancestors." Dustless let out a heavy breath and looked at the ceiling with hesitation. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sometimes, dealing with unreasonable women is even more troublesome than dealing with powerful enemies. When dealing with powerful enemies, it was enough to subdue them with fists. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. This method was useless on women, especially those unreasonable women. Dustless closed his eyes tiredly. After being tormented for half the night, he was really tired. The next morning, the sun hung high in the eastern sky, driving away the cold night. The light of dawn shone all over the world, and the winter sun was especially warm. Dustless climbed out of bed early, and after a simple wash, he went to class at Lichon High School. After all, he was now a physical education teacher there, and he hadn't quit his job yet. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, there was an inexplicable throbbing in the depths of the sky. The transparent sphere continued to expand, swallowing the surrounding sky, and became bigger and bigger. It was full of destructive power, and everything that came into contact with it was destroyed. I've encountered such bad luck early in the morning. What an unlucky year. But then again, this seems to be the so-called spacequake. Looking up at the sky, Dustless's eyes flashed with a strange light. Unlike the panicked crowd around him, Dustless's commanding eyes were filled with expectation. I'd like to see who exactly is the person who dares to visit my territory so rashly. With a faint evil smile on the corner of his mouth, Dustless's face was full of interest. He completely ignored the strange eyes of the people around him. In the eyes of these ordinary people, he probably didn't want to live anymore. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:18. Vroom vroom vroom. The purple energy ball grew bigger and bigger, swallowing all the space around it. The violent force tore the city on the ground apart. In an instant, sand and dust were everywhere, and the bottom area of the spacequake was a mess. No wonder humans hate elves so much. Looking at the surrounding ruins, Dustless lowered his head and remained silent. Humans were sentimental creatures. They could only watch helplessly as their home was mercilessly destroyed. Naturally, they would hate the elves who were the initiators of all this. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, a series of flaming missiles came from afar, attacking the gradually expanding spacequake in a frenzy, trying to stop it from expanding. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of missiles exploded, and the blue sky suddenly burned with raging flames. The pungent smell of gunpowder spread to every corner of the city along with the wind. This group of AST members are all reckless. Even if they hate elves, they don't have to be so crazy. There are still many people around who haven't evacuated. Dustless frowned and looked up at the AST flying in the sky. He could not help but shake his head and immediately left lazily. Boom. It was worth mentioning that the attack of the AST members had an unexpected effect. The constantly expanding spacequake miraculously stopped. Although it offset the continued expansion of the spacequake in a certain sense, the huge energy ball eventually exploded. Oh no! The captain of the AST team, Liaozi under the sun, stared at the crack on the spacequake. The terrifying energy tide overflowed from the crack, and the power that seeped out turned into a violent storm. The AST members were blown back, and it was difficult for them to stabilize their bodies. Is this the power to control the wind? Looks like it's the two of them. Wu Chen's footsteps suddenly stopped. He looked up at the raging wind and waves in the sky. It was like a tornado. It was extremely terrifying. Even the lazy white clouds were blown away by the hurricane and disappeared without a trace. Dustless could only think of two elves with such an ability, Yaji Yaji and Yaji Xinjian. It's already difficult for this group of AST to deal with one elf. If it's two, it's enough to make them suffer. Dustless shook his head. It was not that he looked down on AST, but humans were still humans. It was too difficult for them to compete with the elves. Bang. Accompanied by a loud rumbling sound, the space exploded with a bang. Immediately after, violent wind waves swept out, blowing Dustless's hair to one side. Amidst the dense waves, one could even see flowing lights riding the wind. Upon closer inspection, they were the sisters Bawu Yijia and Bawu Shixian. However, all of this had nothing to do with Dustless. He merely took a few more glances before leisurely leaving. Bang. The moment he turned around, Dustless suddenly realized that he had bumped into a soft body, and because he had used too much strength, he had accidentally knocked her over. Looking down, it was a beautiful blonde woman. This person's appearance was rather fresh. His complexion was slightly pale and his figure was a little thin. His emerald eyes were like gems embedded in his eye sockets. They were like the stars hanging high in the sky. The more one looked at him, the more interesting he became. Why does he look so familiar? Dustless stared at the girl without moving. Perhaps because the memories in his mind were too vast, he could not recall the origin of this person for a moment. Sorry, I was distracted. After thinking for a long time, Dustless no longer hesitated. He scratched his head and apologized. I have been observing the battle between the elves and St. The blonde girl stared at Dustless in surprise. A ripple flashed through her eyes. She looked at the sisters Bawu Yijia and Bawu Shixian. She murmured softly, ordinary people don't know that they are elves. For ordinary humans they would not be able to tell that Bawu Shixian and Bawu Yijia were elves. Dustless was admitting it without being pressed. Wu Chen just shrugged his shoulders and said indifferently, I never said that I was an ordinary person. You, on the other hand, when the spacequake came, everyone ran for their lives, but you didn't fear death and went to the center to join the fun. Same to you. I have the same purpose as you. The blonde girl frowned slightly and stared at Dustless carefully. She saw that he had a faint smile on his face. His bright eyes were full of wisdom. He looked quite like a professor in some university, but he was a little too young. However, the face in front of her was very mature and calm. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Elaine Mira Methers. Nice to meet you. The blonde girl introduced herself in a gentle tone. Her temperament was calm and had a kind of Western gentlemanly demeanor. She was obviously wary of Dustless, but it was difficult to be angry. No wonder I felt that it was familiar. It's her? The confusion in his eyes disappeared. Dustless suddenly remembered the girl's experience. Elaine Mira Methers was the second executive department head of the DM Society. She was Will Court's secretary and right-hand man. She was very loyal and was the world's strongest magician. She had the highest precision of all magicians. She was the strongest when controlling the display device and was not afraid of any threats. Overall, she was considered an outstanding talent among humans. Her strength was quite strong. If I remember correctly, you are called Dustless, right? Although you are not an elf, your strength is not weaker than an elf at all. In fact, you are even stronger. Elaine had obviously investigated Dustless's information. She looked at the face in front of her with a burning gaze and said with a chuckle, "Are you interested in joining our dim society? With your ability, you will definitely be put in an important position." Put in an important position? Little girl, don't tell me you are fooling me like a 3-year-old child? Dustless curled his lips in disdain and stared at the blonde girl in front of him with a sneer. The important position you are talking about is to catch me and use me as a lab rat for experiments, right? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:19. Irene's eyes stared straight at Dustless. Her plain and beautiful pupils were flowing with an oppressive light, trying to see through Dustless. She never thought that Dustless would be so direct and simply say the purpose of winning him over. It was exactly as Dustless had guessed. Irene and the company behind her just wanted to study Dustless's body and the source of his power. After all, a human like Dustless who was not an elf but could easily crush an elf was indeed incredible. This guy is really smart. He knows my purpose and still dares to stand here. This shows that he has a great chance of escaping from me and even defeating me. This is interesting. The faint smile on the corner of her mouth disappeared. Irene cleared her throat. She certainly would not admit to Dustless's previous words. She said, "Using you as a lab rat to study? That's just your wishful thinking. We're a decent company. We'll never do those crazy things. You may have heard about our company before, but I want to tell you that it's all slander by other companies. They just want to destroy our company." Bullshit. Dustless just sneered and interrupted Irene's speech very rudely. "Don't think that I don't know about your shady business. Your company is obsessed with the power of elves. It is simply wishful thinking to want to capture 10 fragrances and possess the power of elves. If it was before, Dustless naturally would not meddle in this kind of thing, but it was different now. Yi Dao Shin, 10 fragrances, and the others had a good relationship with Dustless. Naturally, they would not watch them be captured. Your Excellency, please pay attention to your wording." Irene's smiling face froze. She was very angry with Dustless. This bastard actually thought that her words were bullshit. Even a clay figurine would be angered, not to mention her, the world's #1 magician. There is a saying that if you do not have a guilty conscience, you will not be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. If I'm wrong, you can just laugh it off and don't take it to heart. Now that your reaction is so intense, it shows that your company is a black nest. Dustless didn't hold back at all as he sneered, "Don't think I don't know what your goal is. Let's not talk about the elves for now. Let's talk about Shido's sister. You know better than me what you did to her, right?" "You?" Hearing this, Irene's face turned ugly. Obviously, she was not suitable for lying. She was immediately embarrassed and could not find the words to respond to Dustless. After all, this is the truth. Because Chong Gongjin's body was used as an experiment, she would definitely die within 10 years. How about this? Dustless stared at Irene for a while before stopping in front of her. He suddenly grabbed her chin and said with a smile, "Although your figure is a bit thin, it's barely passable. How about this? You can be my bed-warming maid for the rest of your life. I'll give you 10 times the benefits your boss gave you. How about that? You bastard. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because the higher-ups think highly of you. Don't challenge my bottom line." Hearing this, Irene's eyes were filled with anger. She stared at Dustless with uncertainty. Her eyes were filled with a terrifying scarlet aura. She subconsciously clenched her fists. "Ehe, you want to be rough with me? Just you? Do you know the consequences of an ant challenging a giant? Idiot." Dustless looked at Irene with a mocking smile. Not only was he not intimidated by the girl's aura, but he was also gradually getting interested. Originally, he just wanted to teach this arrogant girl a lesson. He didn't expect her to take a mile after taking an inch. "I know that you're the strongest magician. Your combat power is unquestionable." Dustless stared at Irene's pretty face. He immediately chuckled and said, "But I'm sure you've investigated my information and know my combat power. You don't have the confidence to defeat me. Otherwise, with your company's way of doing things, You would have sent people to capture me long ago, right? The strong never cared about the feelings of the weak. If Dustless was the prey in Irene's eyes, he might have been captured the moment he appeared in this world. Just like how he captured the elves later on, the reason was too superfluous. You can do something out of line to challenge me. Irene stared at Dustless expressionlessly. Her eyes were full of hostility. She was clearly warning Dustless not to act rashly. I forgot to tell you that my temper may be a little strange. Those things that I'm not allowed to do, I just like to persevere and complete them. For example, right now, you hope that I don't provoke you, but I like to seek death. So what if I provoke your bottom line? Dustless's eyes were full of mockery. One of his large hands grabbed Irene's chin, while the other hand grabbed her shirt. With a casual tug, Dustless tore the corner of Irene's straight suit. Her snow-white skin was faintly discernible, and one could clearly see the huge ball of flesh. Let me get this straight. Being able to warm my bed with you is the blessing of 8 lifetimes. There have been many people who wanted to get on my bed but didn't have the chance. I repeat, this is because I think highly of you. Dustless spoke frankly. His expression deeply angered Irene. However, this was also an undeniable fact. After all, most of Dustless's female confidants were extremely powerful. For example, Kagaya Atsutsuki, Unohana Retsu, or Boa Hancock. Compared to them, Irene was not worth mentioning, whether it was in terms of strength or beauty. Good, very good. Irene trembled in anger. A gentle breeze blew and her face was cold. However, her heart was like an exploding volcano. Anger filled her mind. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2120. Elaine was so angry that she was trembling. No matter what, she was still the strongest magician in the human race. But facing Dustless at this moment, let alone respect, the other party didn't even put her in his eyes. He treated her like a pawn and his words were filled with endless contempt and ridicule. You forced me to do this. Irene coldly looked at Dustless. Suddenly, a light appeared on her body, and shiny equipment slowly appeared. It seemed that she could not help but want to teach Dustless a lesson. However, at this moment a sudden change occurred. Boom, boom, boom. Above the horizon, a wave of destruction suddenly descended. It was like a scythe that swept away everything on the ground. Dustless was still fine. After all, he had seen too many storms and waves. He had experienced too many major events. However, Irene was in an extremely difficult situation. Everything happened so suddenly. Her entire person was like a kite with a broken string as she flew out powerlessly. Bang! Irene's body heavily crashed to the ground. Her face was pale, and a faint trace of blood seeped from the corner of her mouth. These despicable and arrogant elves, just you wait. Irene was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She looked up at the two people fighting in the sky, feeling extremely indignant. Bawu Yajia and Bawu Shishin were the instigators of the sudden storm just now. Titkiske, little girl, you're in such a sorry state. Wu Qin, who was in the middle of the storm, stood tall and straight like a javelin. His relaxed and slow pace obviously showed that he did not put the storm around him in his eyes. How about it? Do you agree to my conditions now? Dustless stroked Irene's smooth chin and chuckled. Don't worry, I just need a maid to warm my bed. You've gone too far. If you want to humiliate me, why don't you just kill me? Irene's face was filled with anger as she glared at Dustless. If it wasn't for the fact that she was suddenly injured, which made it extremely painful to move, she definitely would not mind giving Dustless a few slaps. Now that she had been severely injured by those despicable elves and could not move, Dustless was clearly taking advantage of this situation. You want me to kill you? I won't kill you. Letting you die so casually would be letting you off too easily. Dustless smiled faintly. Naturally, he would not be provoked. What if you do something perverted to me? Looking gloomily at Dustless, Elaine's eyes were filled with disgust and helplessness. There was nothing he could do about it. The situation was beyond his control. He had no choice but to lower his head. Afraid that I'll do something perverted? Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but laugh. He playfully touched the girl's face. You're quite pretty, but I'm really not interested in you. Your 2 lumps of meat are too skinny, not to my liking. Staring at Eileen's snow-white ball, Wu Qin only glanced at it casually. You. Irene was fuming with anger. She was hit hard by Dustless's words. Die for me, you stinky brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As soon as his voice fell, Irene's fragrant foot smashed over. Bang. Dustless casually grabbed it and subdued it. His cold eyes did not have a trace of emotion. What if I strip you naked on the streets? Gulp. Hearing this, Irene instantly shivered. She looked at Dustless in fear, then said submissively, "Sorry, I was wrong. I will definitely be obedient in the future. At least you know what's good for you." Dustless lightly snorted. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly felt a large amount of softness wrap around him. "You guys, what do you want? Could it be that you guys think I'm made of mud and want to test my strength?" To his left and right were the unexpected Bichiwu Yagiya and Bichiwu Shixian. "Hey Shixian, we've competed in so many events but there's never been a winner. This time let's do something different. Whoever this brat falls for first will win. How about that?" Bichiwu Yagiya looked at Bichiwu Shixian provocatively. At the same time, he gave Dustless a few coquettish glances as if to say, "You're lucky, brat." What does this have to do with me?" The corner of Dustless's mouth twitched when he heard this. He felt as if he had been innocently shot while lying down. He cursed in his heart, "You guys can compete, but what does it have to do with me?" "Agreed." The naturally naive Bichiwu Shixian readily agreed without hesitation. She was extremely decisive and did not even bat an eyelid. Now there's a good show to watch." Irene looked at Dustless with a gloating expression. Even the mission of roping him in had been thrown out of the window. Seeing Dustless's gloomy face, she felt particularly happy. However, she had to admit that Dustless's luck with women was really good. Just standing on the street, there were beauties sending themselves to his door, making others envious. "Let's start now. I'll definitely make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly." Bichiwu Yaguya looked down at Bichiwu Shixian arrogantly. Then he hugged Dustless tightly, wanting to take him into his arms. "Hurry up and fall for me." Bichiwu Yaguya almost rode on Dustless as if he wanted to merge himself with Dustless, for fear that Bichiwu Shixian would snatch him away. "Hurry up and fall for you?" Dustless's face was extremely dark. If he was not different from ordinary people, he would have been strangled to death. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-21. Dustless was very familiar with the two girls in front of him, and he knew that they had no ill intentions. Otherwise he would have slapped them to death already. Although the elves were powerful, they were still nothing to Dustless. "You want me to be infatuated with the two of you?" Dustless stared at the two with great interest. His eyes suddenly narrowed and a dangerous light danced in his eyes. Under this clear gaze, everyone felt like they were naked and exposed to Dustless's eyes. Hey. You look so gentle, why are you looking at people with such vulgar eyes?" Under Dustless's gaze, Yata's body twisted and turned, and her face was slightly red. She was quite uncomfortable. "You want me to be infatuated with the two of you?" Dustless looked back and forth between the two girls as he chuckled and said, "It's very simple. I love watching women fight. You can continue now." Rolling his eyes, Wuxia revealed a pair of clear eyes. His expression looked harmless to humans and animals. "This scum is really bad. He wants the two sisters to kill each other." Irene stared at Dustless with great surprise, and the shock in her crystalline eyes could not be concealed. Dustless and Ratatosker were inextricably linked. In her understanding, Dustless's actions should be to save the elves. She did not expect this guy to want the two girls to kill each other. His actions were both surprising and puzzling. What an interesting guy. Irene could not help but look at the calm Dustless and sneered, "Although the elves are a bit simple-minded, do you think others are idiots? Do you think they'll kill each other just because you want them to? How can they be so obedient?" However, the two elven girls' following reply made Dustless's jaw drop. "Okay, I'll listen to you." Without even thinking, Yata nodded and looked at Yata with a cold light in her eyes, full of battle intent. "I agree." Yata only said 2 words, but her gaze was extremely determined. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, an extremely powerful impact burst out from the two of them. A violent hurricane swept out. The two women were shrouded in thick tornadoes. They roared in the sky and the surrounding buildings were swept up one after another. Circles and circles of tornadoes spun rapidly. Due to the wind speed being too fast, the formless tornadoes had turned into blades that could be seen with the naked eye. A slight touch would probably cause one's body to bleed profusely. The building ruins that were swept up would also be sliced into pieces. This is too childish. Irene looked at the two of them in disbelief. Then she looked at Dustless's unmoved expression and scolded, "Why are these two brats so childish? Can't you see that this is to make you kill each other on purpose?" In fact, Irene wasn't the only one who was stunned. The members of Ratatoskr were also stunned. Is Dustless too smart, or are these two elves too naive? Itsuka Kotori was also stunned. She bit the lollipop in her mouth subconsciously. She didn't expect these two elves to be so obedient. Especially when they met Dustless for the first time, they were so obedient. Quickly show me the data of those two elves. Itsuka Kotori's eyes turned slightly, and she couldn't wait to order Kyuhei. Commander, I have seen the favorability of those two elves to Dustless. Murasame Rain slowly walked over, put the freshly brewed coffee aside, looked at the data, and explained, at first, the favorability of Dustless was only 10%, but after Dustless asked them to duel, the favorability climbed to an astonishing 40%. Correct. Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori clenched her teeth and said in disbelief, I thought the favorability of the two elves to Dustless would drop to negative, but it increased by 30%. God, is there a mistake? As an outsider, I can see that Dustless is deliberately making the two elves kill each other, but the favorability didn't decrease but increased. It's really strange. No, this may be Dustless's intention. Murasame Rain looked at the lazy Dustless through the screen, and after thinking for a few seconds she explained, perhaps Dustless knows the character of the two elves and did this deliberately. I'm afraid that refusing will cause more chaos. Not to mention Murasame Rain really guessed it right. Dustless knew the character of Bawu Yagusha and Bawu Shishin. After living for so long day after day year after year, Dustless's heart had been tempered thousands of times. How could he be easily infatuated with others? Therefore he could only think of other ways to transfer the problem. It was not a big problem to let the two elves fight. Anyway, their strength was at the same level and no one could do anything to each other. In the end they could only stop. The war between women looks particularly pleasing to the eye. Looking up at the sky, above the sky, two streamers were fighting with all their strength, and the loud noise was very oppressive. Why is it so easy to tame the elves? Irene's eyes were fixed on Dustless's body, and she complained in a sour tone, if I were a man, maybe the two elves just now would choose me instead of Dustless. Looking at this momentum, I'm afraid I don't need to do anything. I can just use my mouth to subdue them. With the appearance of the elves, the residents around fled. Only Dustless was left. Bawu Yagusha and Bawu Shishin could only choose him. If you were a man. Hearing Irene's soft complaint, Dustless just smiled and joked, they wouldn't be obedient. Why? Irene asked puzzledly. Idiot. Glancing at Irene, Dustless rolled his eyes and said, men and women can change sex, do I still need you? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-22. You are shameless. Irene glared at Dustless, gritting her teeth angrily, and there were clearly visible traces of blood on her tongue. It's not that she was narrow-minded, but this guy's words were too irritating. You continue to play, I'm going to teach. Completely ignoring the angry Irene, Dustless left her a lazy back. Boom boom boom. The battle between the two people in the sky was still going on fiercely, but as Dustless imagined, Yabu Yajiya and Yabu Shishin couldn't do anything to each other. Sigh. Staring at Dustless's back, Irene just sighed helplessly. The thin back looked vulnerable, but for Irene, it was the most troublesome and dangerous enemy. Time flies, and it was noon in the blink of an eye in the PE teacher's office. Dustless, Kun, I heard that you will have a new assistant to report. Murasame Rain stared at Dustless, who was sleeping on the table, and was secretly entangled. Where did this guy come to be a teacher? He was obviously lazy and sleeping. He was so comfortable. New assistant? Rubbing his sleepy eyes, Dustless glanced at Murasame Rain and complained, is it an undercover like you? I have never heard of a PE teacher who needs an assistant. Hearing this, Murasame Rain was silent. This matter was really a bit strange. What did a PE teacher need to stop? Including Murasame Rain, this assistant was not worthy of the name. I want to see who is coming to die. Looking out of the window in boredom, Dustless's slack eyes gradually had a little more expectation. Anyway, it was just a way to pass the boring time. By the way, how are the two elves today? With a change of topic, Dustless suddenly remembered Yabu Yajia and Yabu Shishin, and asked curiously, were they killed by AST? Thanks to you they didn't. The two sisters left safe and sound. Rain Murasame shook her head slightly and said with a smile, the strongest in AST is Tobi Origami, but since you saved her parents, her hatred for elves has been greatly reduced. Although she still works in AST, she has not killed anyone, and her hatred for elves has decreased a lot. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Suddenly, a creaking sound came from the corridor. Are they coming? It sounds like the sound of high heels. In other words, is it a woman? Wu Chen's eyes lit up a little. He looked at the closed door with interest. He wanted to see who this inexplicable assistant was. Creak. The locked door was suddenly opened, revealing a delicate face. The emerald eyes were very dazzling. The moment she appeared, Dustless's sight could no longer move. It was not that this woman's appearance was outstanding. Although she looked good, her skin was white and her appearance was outstanding, but this was not what Dustless cared about the most. It was that this so-called assistant was a familiar person, and she had a grudge with Dustless before. Are you here to pick a fight? If so, then congratulations, you will definitely suffer my revenge. Staring at the gentle girl, Dustless said faintly. This assistant was not someone else, it was Irene who he met before. I don't understand what you are talking about. Irene shook her head, looked at Dustless's black eyes and said frankly, I am just your assistant. Before this, I didn't know that the physical education teacher of this school was you, Dustless. You didn't know it was me? You don't even blush when you tell a lie. It seems that you gradually get used to making up lies. Dustless just disdainfully curled his lips and immediately sneered, very well, since you don't think it's like a sheep entering the tiger's mouth, I don't care. After the voice fell, Dustless glanced at Murasame Rain, winked at her and smirked, obviously hinting Murasame Rain to tease this proud woman. I understand. Murasame Rain's eyebrows stretched out, nodded gently with a smile, and elegantly picked up the black notepad. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Irene. If you have any trouble in the future, just leave it to me. Irene smiled and glanced at Dustless and Murasame Rain. Her clear voice was very pleasant. However, in the next second she instantly felt bitter. She couldn't wait to slap herself and secretly scolded her mouth. Miss Irene, since you have said so, I will not be polite. There is no doubt that as an assistant of a PE teacher, you naturally need a strong physique. Now, please go to the playground and run 100 laps with weights. You must finish it within an hour. Murasame Rain looked at Irene seriously, and there was no room for negotiation in her words. 100 laps. Are you kidding me? Run 100 laps in an hour? Can this be done by human beings? One lap is almost 500 meters, 100 laps is 50,000 meters, which is 50 kilometers, and it's completed within an hour. You are not deliberately teasing me, are you? Irene's watery eyes stared at Dustless, and her anger almost burned her reason. This guy was obviously deliberately teasing her. Run 50 kilometers in an hour? What a joke. Deliberately teasing you? I'm not that kind of mean person. It's completely nonsense. As an assistant of a PE teacher, you don't have a strong physique. How can you be a role model for students? You have to pay attention to your identity. Dustless said slowly, looking at Irene with a smirk, and his cheeks were full of teasing expressions. Obviously, Dustless deliberately teased Irene. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-23. Ai Lian was so angry that she clenched her teeth. She understood that Wu Qin was purposely punishing her and using this as a pretext to make a fuss. He was deliberately retaliating against her. However, the sad thing was that Ai Lian didn't have any reason to refute Wu Qin. She could only swallow her anger. You win. Using the most resentful eyes in her life, she glared at Dustless a few times before leaving. It seemed that she was really going for a run. Isn't it inappropriate to deliberately set her up like this? Who knows, maybe she'll secretly set a trap for you when you're trying to catch the elves. That's not worth it. Although Murasame Rain was also somewhat gloating, she felt that it was too much. After all, it was an exaggeration of 50 kilometers in an hour. It would be a miracle if he could complete it. Gulp. Dustless smiled and took a big sip of herbal tea. Looking through the window at the blonde girl on the field, he said disapprovingly, Rain, she came to monitor me. Do I need to be nice to this kind of person? If I didn't guess wrong, Irene's purpose is to collect my data, then find an opportunity to hurt me, and then use me for experiments. When the time is right, she won't mind dissecting me into 8 pieces. Speaking of this, Dustless's eyes were cold. With a bang, he directly crushed the teacup in his hand, and the ground was full of glass fragments. Huff huff huff. On the field, Aileen was panting and sweating profusely. Her bright golden hair was covered with sparkling and translucent beads of sweat. She was the only one running on the field. Her face was also incomparably pale, causing others to feel pity for her. However, from the beginning to the end, Wuxian was like a piece of iron. His cold eyes condensed a cold light, without the slightest bit of humanity. Not to mention having protective feelings for the fairer sex, there was not even a trace of pity ripple. To cherish a beautiful woman, one had to look at the other party. Who would cherish a beautiful woman who had deliberately approached you, wanted to collect your data, and was about to be dissected by you in the end? It was already good that Dustless didn't destroy the beauty. Speaking of which, that homicidal maniac Tokisaki Kurumi seems to have disappeared. Dustless's eyes flickered as he looked over. His clear eyes took in the entire Lichen High School. Shido Itsuka, Tabichi Origami Yato Toka, and the others were all clearly visible. Only Toshiaki Kurumi was missing. What? Do you miss her? Murasame Rain stared at Dustless with interest. Her eyes were shining, and it felt particularly strange with the thick black smoke. Anyone could see what she meant. Miss her? She's more like me. That little girl had always wanted to borrow my power to go back in time and kill the primordial elf. She had always regarded me as her exclusive property and always paid attention to me. She suddenly didn't come to school. I was just very curious. In the past, I was always surrounded by Izaki Kurumi's traces. Now that I've given up on him, it feels weird. Dustless spoke frankly as he looked around, but he still couldn't find any trace of Tokisaki Kurumi. I don't know the specific reason. Our people tried to monitor her, but they were killed and even their bodies were not found. Murasame Rain shook her head and sighed. Among all the elves, Nightmare is the most difficult to deal with. The number of humans she killed is dozens of times more than other elves. Enough. Without waiting for Murasame Rain to continue, Dustless interrupted her and said with a frown, Toshiaki Kurumi has confronted me many times. I know her quite well. In fact, she's not as bad as you think. There's no need to find someone to monitor her. Those who were killed by Toshiaki Kurumi only meant that they deserved to be killed. Deserved to be killed? Hearing Dustless's words, Murasame Rain couldn't help but shiver. Although this cold tone didn't have any killing intent, it made her feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Looking carefully at Dustless's deep black eyes, Murasame Rain clearly saw a kind of indifference that she had never seen before. He was full of indifference to everything in the world. He could destroy it with a wave of his hand, and he didn't care about the lives of humans as if they were worthless. What a cold guy. Although Dustless is not an elf, he is definitely more brutal and terrifying than the elves. I hope that no one will anger Dustless in the future. Murasame Rain took a deep breath. Dustless's indifferent tone just now made her shiver all over. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. Once again, the sound of high heels could be heard in the corridor. However, it was different from before. It stopped after a few sounds. Repeating this process over and over again, it seemed to be very tiring. Boom. The office door was smashed open by a punch. Dustless raised his eyes and looked straight at the door. The person who came was Irene, who was half dead from exhaustion. You really have no manners. Didn't your family say that you have to knock on the door before entering? You don't even know the basic etiquette. How can I rest assured to let you be my assistant? Dustless chuckled and stared at Irene, who had a dark face. He was silent for a moment. The sudden words almost made her unable to hold back her anger and fight with Dustless. Irene, in fact, you don't have to run 100 laps. You just need to ask for leave at that time. After all, I am a very compassionate boss. As my assistant, Rain has never suffered so much. Why didn't you say that before? Now that I have finished running, it's your turn to talk nonsense. Hearing this, Irene was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. She shouted loudly, could it be that your mouth was sewn up by needle and thread before? You even forgot this kind of thing. How dare you say that you are compassionate to your subordinates? Shameless. You are an evil person. It's really hard to be a good person. Dustless sighed sadly, then smiled and said, since you think that I am not a good boss, then I will show my true nature. Irene, please go out and run another 100 laps. Don't ask me why. Since you said that I am an evil person, I will take it with a clear conscience. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-24. Ai Lian was so angry that her head felt stuffy. Her slender white jade finger trembled as she pointed at Wu Qin. Seeing this guy's sloppy manner with a cheap smile on his face, her pink face instantly turned red like a monkey's butt. Her pair of eyes that were enough to spurt out flames almost melted Wu Qin. Are you purposely going against me? Don't think that I'm easy to bully. Do you believe that I can kick you out of this school with just a flick of my finger? Ai Lian could not bear it any longer. Looking at Dustless's stinky face, her innermost being churned, almost throwing up. This bastard is too hateful. He bullied me time and time again. Not to mention a living person, even a clay bodhisattva would be angered by Dustless. Hee, you want me to get out? Dustless laughed. He blinked his deep eyes and said innocently, you want me to get out? I can't ask for anything more. If you have the guts, ask the principal to fire me right now. Dustless put his feet on the table and leaned his head on the soft cushion. He even whistled, looking like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. Don't get carried away. Irene pointed at Dustless and trembled with anger. She wanted to kick Dustless out of this school? She also wanted to, but the higher-ups would not agree to such a doting method. Her task was to monitor Wu Qin and collect the data of this abominable brat. If Wu Qin left, how could she collect the data? Therefore, Irene was just casually saying it to scare Dustless. She thought that threatening Dustless would scare him, but who would have thought that this guy would retreat in order to advance? His expression made Irene so angry that she wanted to bite Dustless to death. You have guts. Just wait and see. Irene glared at Dustless and left. Being in the same space as this guy, she felt that she would lose 10 years of her life. Hey, Irene, don't run. Go and clean the toilet bowl in the girls' room. Also, remember to clean the entire school building. And lastly, despicable bastard, he must have done it on purpose definitely. Does the PE teacher's assistant need to clean the ladies' room? You're deliberately causing trouble for me. Dustless's series of orders came from behind. Hearing this, Irene almost vomited blood. Who does this bastard think I am? Even a full-time nanny wouldn't need to take care of the school building. What a bastard. You better not fall into my hands. Irene turned around and glanced at Dustless's ugly face, then angrily ran away. You've completely infuriated her like this. It's inevitable that you'll cause some unnecessary trouble. Seeing that Irene had run away, Murasame Rain sighed with melancholy. Once the opportunity was seized, the other party would definitely retaliate fiercely. So what? Even if I infuriated her, would she eat me? Dustless disapproved of this and sneered, playing with her is an honor for this little girl. If she doesn't know when to stop, then don't blame me for being ruthless. By the way, I have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. Suddenly remembering something, Murasame Rain smiled and stared at Dustless. What's the matter? Dustless looked at Murasame Rain strangely and wondered, is it the problem of the elves? The power of Toka and Kotori has been sealed by me. Tokisaki Kurumi is missing. The 4 elves are so well behaved and won't cause trouble. Are there other elves? Speaking of this, Dustless instinctively thought of the 2 sisters Baba Yagia and Baba Yagia. It was strange to think about it. After the 2 sisters disappeared, they seemed to have disappeared from the world. There was nowhere to find them, including the members of AST, who couldn't find the traces of the 2. It was as if they had never appeared. The next class seems to be the PE class. It's really troublesome. I wanted to leave it to you, but now you leave early. Don't you want me to play with those kids again? Looking at the class schedule, Dustless complained quite unhappily. Murasame Rain's eyes turned gently and smiled. Leave the next PE class to me. I'll just go out for about 10 minutes. I'll come back when the time is up. You can rest here temporarily. Are you sure? Dustless showed a rare smile. I asked you to go to class for me before. You didn't compromise. Why did you suddenly change this time? Could it be that there's some unspeakable secret? No, absolutely not. Murasame Rain immediately refuted Dustless and said, if you don't want to, then you go to the next PE class. I'll stay in the office to rest. You go. Who has time to accompany those kids to do radio gymnastics? It's funny. Dustless snorted and lay on the sofa comfortably. He waved his hand and said, just do as you said. You go. Remember to come back in 10 minutes. After today I will resign. I have no patience for this job. It's too boring. Murasame Rain didn't say much. She just nodded and immediately left quietly. Time passed by minute, and 10 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking on the door suddenly sounded. Dustless, who was sleeping comfortably, opened his eyes and couldn't help but frown. Is it Rain? She said before that she would take my place in this PE class. Why did she suddenly come back? After a deep stretch, Dustless yawned and went to open the door. He was really sleepy. Creak. Unexpectedly, as soon as the door was opened, two beautiful figures rushed into his eyes. The appearance and dressing of these two people were almost the same. Their figures were very hot and they were even wearing cute maid outfits. Their rosy cheeks were full of affection as they stared at Dustless. Their pink and tender faces were exceptionally perfect. Two shy little dimples were clearly visible, making people who saw them couldn't help but want to kiss them personally. You are Bachiwa Yijia and Bachiwa Shisien? Dustless stupidly said the names of the two girls. Suddenly, the strange smile of Murasame Rain appeared in his mind. After the corner of his mouth twitched, he suddenly cursed, "Damn Rain, no wonder she took the initiative to teach those naughty kids for me. It turned out to help the two sisters find time to capture me. Hateful. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 21-25. The two of you. No wonder I couldn't find any traces of you. So Lingyin hid you. Also, what kind of nonsense did she teach you? Why are you wearing maid outfits? Dustless stared straight at the two girls. At this moment, their outfits were extremely revealing. Because of the white maid outfits, their skin was almost transparent, and their graceful bodies were completely exposed to Dustless. Cough, cough, cough. Even though Dustless was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years, he was also quite embarrassed at this moment. He looked at the clear eyes of the two sisters, which were as pure and flawless as snow. It was obvious that they didn't know anything and were extremely simple-minded. Don't even think about running away this time. I will definitely make you infatuated with me. Bachiwa Yijia hugged Dustless's right arm and directly stuffed Dustless's right arm into the cleavage in front of her. The endless aftertaste of the touch immediately surged into his heart. Dustless's heart, which had been calm for many years, rippled, and a nameless fire burned in his heart. Objection. Bachiwa Shishuan did the same and also pulled Dustless's cheating arm over and buried it deep in her cleavage. She looked at Bachiwa Yijia provocatively. Your rough skin will only make Dustless more uncomfortable. What did you say? Shishuan, do you believe that I won't tear your mouth apart? Bachiwa Yijia was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He instantly stood up and glared at Bachiwa Shishuan, looking like he was about to start a fight. This is the truth. Bachiwa Shishuan was not afraid at all. She looked into Bachiwa Yijia's eyes without any fear. She pointed at Dustless and announced, Teacher said that men like big breasts. You obviously have no advantage in this aspect. Admit defeat, Yijia. If your breasts are big? What a joke, Shishuan. Hearing this, Yasuya Geisha sneered. Then, like an arrogant queen, she crossed her arms in front of her and squeezed the heavy meatball in front of her. She looked at Yasuya Geisha's cleavage with disdain. Your cleavage is too small. It can't even withstand a single blow. If you know what's good for you, leave quickly. Don't lose face if you lose. Objection. Bawa Shishin said sarcastically, Yajuya is just, all of you stop. From now on, you are not allowed to speak without my permission. Dustless suddenly interrupted the quarrel between the two and asked with a headache, Who is the teacher you are talking about? Which damn teacher taught you all this? This kind of teacher is simply a beast in human clothing. Instead of teaching the students properly, he actually taught you how to seduce men. He's sick. Dustless opened his mouth. Just as he was about to continue speaking, a figure suddenly appeared in his mind. In the original work, it was Murasame Rain who taught the two sisters how to seduce men, tricking the two sisters to capture 5 River Shido. Who would have thought that it would become him? Don't tell me Lingyin taught you? Dustless asked uncertainly as he looked at the two of them. The two sisters looked at each other and nodded at the same time. As expected, it's this Fujoshi. Dustless shook his head and was not surprised. He first pulled the two sisters into the PE teacher's office and let them sit on the sofa. Then he slowly said, Actually, you can change the competition. Let me be infatuated with you, is a bit too much. Dustless had lived for hundreds of years. What kind of beauty had he not seen before? He might have met a beautiful woman that he liked, but he would not overdo it. He would never be infatuated with her. This consort has already competed against Xixian in all sorts of special competitions. Even now there's still no clear victor. This challenge is the most challenging one. Yaegia looked at Dustless seriously. It was obvious that she wanted to continue with this competition. Brats will always be brats. You won't listen to adults' advice at all. Dustless shook his head again and was too lazy to persuade her. He looked up at the ceiling and said, "Then I'm sorry to tell you that even if you wear maid outfits, you won't be able to make me infatuated with you. Your plans will all be ruined." "No, this is only the first step. There's still a second step." Yakuza came over with a smile and lay on Dustless's body. Instantly, a fragrant aroma wafted out from Yakuza's body. "This is..." Dustless was stunned. He stared at Yaegia and stared at her snow-white breasts. There was an envelope that looked like a letter in the middle. Curious, Dustless reached out and grabbed it. "This is..." After looking at it carefully for a few seconds, Dustless asked in surprise, "Seducing Knight Meijio's concert ticket? Where did you get this from?" "Master gave it to us." Yaegia looked at Dustless and was convinced. She also took out a similar ticket. This Murasame Rain really put in a lot of effort. In order for her 2 disciples to woo me, she even prepared Seducing Knight Meijio's concert ticket in advance. Looking at the ticket in his hand and glancing at the 2 girls' eager eyes, Dustless knew that he had to go this time even if he didn't want to. The weirdest thing was Seducing Knight Meijio's concert. As a transmigrator, Dustless understood that Seducing Knight Meijio was also an elf. Her identification name was Diva. She was a student in her normal life. Her real identity was a human who was endowed with elf power like Itsuka Kotori. She had an extremely male-hating personality and her favorability would drop below that of a cockroach just by talking to her. She was an elf who liked females very much. In other words, it was no different from a fool's dream to woo Knight Meijio or gain her favorability. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-26. Of course, Dustless could also imitate Itsuka Shido, disguise himself as a woman and try to seduce Meijio. "Okay, I promise you 2 that I'll accompany you to see Meijio's concert in 3 days. Dustless couldn't bear to refuse when faced with Yaegia and Yeiju Shixian's expectant eyes. He had no choice but to agree to go to the concert in 3 days. "Hehe, at least you know what's good for you. It's rare for you to be so obedient. I'll give you a reward." Yaegia looked at Dustless with a smile. She stared at his white and tender face and blushed. But when she recalled Murasame Rain's advice, she mustered up her courage and still took the initiative to approach him. "What do you want?" Dustless looked at Yaegia strangely. He didn't know what this guy was doing. Shixian wants it too. At the same time, Yeiju Shixian's face also leaned over. Her eyes stared at Dustless like a wolf or a tiger, as if she was hesitating where to start. These 2 guys, seeing this, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ripples appeared on both sides of his eyes. He was speechless to find that he was surrounded by the small lips of the 2 girls on both sides. Moi. Taking advantage of Dustless's hesitation, Yaegia and Yeiju Shixian attacked with great tacit understanding. The 2 of them left a pink lip print on Dustless's left and right cheeks. "You." Wu Chen's eyes widened when he sensed the strange sensation on his cheek. He sighed when he saw the 2 girls' delicate faces. Forget it. It's fine that you took advantage of me. I'll put this on Ling Yin's head. You're the one who's benefiting." Yaegia punched Dustless and said angrily, "You're the one who took advantage of us, not the other way around. How many handsome guys want to go to the concert with me? I'm not interested." "Is that so? Then I'm really surprised to be invited by the 2 of you." Dustless chuckled. His tone was very flat. In fact, let alone watching the concert, he didn't know how many beauties were circling around him. It was just that Dustless didn't care. After all, there were too many beauties in the world. He couldn't fall in love with every one of them. Moreover, a mere concert was nothing. As long as Dustless called, there would definitely be countless beauties accompanying him to watch the concert. This was the benefit of being powerful. Ding ding ding, in the blink of an eye it was noon. At the same time, it was also the time for Lichon High School to be dismissed. "You haven't gone back yet?" Walking into the PE teacher's office, the first thing that came into view was Dustless lying comfortably on the sofa. His eyes were closed as if he was taking a nap. Of course I'm still missing you, the main character. Dustless suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the figure of Murasame Rain. His palm suddenly grabbed and a large scale of gravity broke out in an instant. Boom. Caught off guard, Murasame Rain lost the control of her body. The whole person was like a kite with a broken string, powerlessly falling into Dustless's arms. What do you want to do? Let me go, here's the school. Murasame Rain stared at the handsome face close at hand. After a few seconds, she immediately struggled violently. However, her strength was too small and she couldn't break free at all. You did something wrong and still ask me what I did? Are you still pretending to be stupid now? Dustless stared at Murasame Rain jokingly, with a mischievous expression on his face. It seems that if I don't give you some punishment, you won't confess. After the voice fell, Dustless's hands reached into Murasame Rain's clothes. Don't mess around, here is the school. Murasame Rain was like a frightened little white rabbit, screaming loudly quickly. Hey, you can't mess around at school, but can you mess around at home? Touching Murasame Rain's chin, Dustless laughed and joked, your two apprentices are very capable. They even dare to regard me as prey. Their ambition is not small. You know it all? Hearing this, Murasame Rain's pretty face was slightly red, and she understood what Dustless said. The two little girls' minds are as pure as snow. I just asked them a little bit and then I knew who the behind-the-scenes person is. Dustless glanced at Murasame Rain disdainfully, and his expression rarely showed a trace of emotion. He smiled and said, but they succeeded and I have promised to go to the concert. Really? Murasame Rain was greatly surprised, and the thick dark circles under her eyes disappeared in an instant. She was in high spirits and looked energetic. For a long time, in the impression of most people, Dustless was an extremely cold type. Although he usually talked and laughed, his essence was cold. Now that her two apprentices had successfully conquered Dustless, Murasame Rain's heart inevitably felt a little proud. Yes, I promised them. The two children are very simple. Although they are elves, they are no different from human children. Perhaps it is the remaining kindness that causes trouble. I can't bear to refuse them, so I agreed. Dustless said lightly. So, I taught them well and took advantage of your kindness? Murasame Rain smiled slightly and sounded very satisfied. Maybe, anyway, I promised them. In short, you succeeded, Rain. Dustless nodded slightly and immediately changed his expression. He smiled and said, although I can't bully the two pure little girls, but, speaking of this, Dustless's eyes burst out a burst of cold light, and Murasame Rain felt uncomfortable and had a feeling of imminent disaster. But what? Murasame Rain asked nervously. It's very simple. Dustless suddenly hugged Murasame Rain, and immediately pressed her on the table with great strength, lifting the black skirt. I can't bear to retaliate against your two apprentices. After all, they are too simple, but as their teacher, I can retaliate against you. I will let you understand the consequences of using me. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-27. Dustless had a great expression, which made Murasame Rain's chest tremble with anger. Let me go or I will scream. You don't want to be seen by others, do you? A strong person like you doesn't want to lose your reputation and be treated as a pervert, do you? Murasame Rain looked at Dustless in horror. The joy of victory before disappeared without a trace. She secretly scolded that this deal was a loss. Although it was cool to see Dustless being defeated, the sad thing was that she got herself involved in it. You still dare to threaten me when you are about to die? You're such a stubborn person. Dustless looked at Murasame Rain angrily, and then raised his arm under her surprised gaze. Stop it, stop it. Murasame Rain blushed, her face was red, and the dark circles on both sides of her eyes disappeared. She had already guessed what Dustless would do to her. Paw. A ruthless slap fell, and there was a clear palm print on Murasame Rain's butt. You dare to threaten me, Pa? Another merciless slap landed on his face. You dare to plot against me, Pa? Another slap fell. This scene lasted about a few minutes. When it was over, Murasame Rain had crystal tears on both sides of her eyes. Obviously she was beaten by Dustless. Wait and see. Murasame Rain stared at Dustless's back fiercely, and her small hand subconsciously touched her butt. She grimaced in pain, but strangely she didn't feel disgusted. Not only that, but she was full of energy and there was boiling heat in her body. Strange, when did I become like this? Murasame Rain was extremely embarrassed. Every time she was slapped by Dustless, her body would have a strange electric current, and her body was soft. If it weren't for the fact that Dustless was close at hand, she might have been unable to stand up. Just now she was in pain and pleasure. Why don't you go? Do you want to stay here and try again? Dustless turned his head to look at Murasame Rain, who was still wasting time in the office, and smiled playfully. Do you want to change other tricks? For an old monster like me who has lived for hundreds of years, I have many tricks up my sleeve. You're already a few hundred years old, yet you're still playing this kind of trick? Then you must have been a super freak when you were young. Murasame Lingyin snorted softly, and her charming eyes were like silk. Usually she looked sluggish. At this moment, her budding appearance was like a blooming rose, which made it difficult for people to move their eyes away. Don't be so sure. Have you seen me when I was young? When this young master was young, flowers bloomed when they saw me and everyone loved me when they saw me. How am I as wretched as you say? Dustless blinked his bright eyes and said with a faint smile, Is your body feeling something and you like the me just now? Ah, what a bad woman. Damn hooligan. Hearing this, Murasame Rain rolled her eyes at Dustless and immediately picked up the pillow and smashed it over. That's her. On the other side, Tokisaki Kurumi quietly sneaked, staring at the girl walking alone in front of her, and a smug smile appeared on her face. Dustless, right? This time, I must make you kneel in front of me and beg for mercy. Even if I can't deal with you, dealing with such a child is still a piece of cake for me. Tokisaki Kurumi proudly said to herself. The girl who was focused on by her eyes was Yansei. Among all the elves, the kindest was Yansei. She wasn't good at fighting, and even if she defeated the opponent, she wouldn't kill the enemy. As the saying goes, pick the soft persimmon. After careful consideration, Tokisaki Kurumi naturally chose Yansei. She wanted to capture this weak girl and use her to threaten Dustless. If you want to blame someone, blame Dustless. Who told that guy to refuse to merge with me? Goodbye, girl. Tokisaki Kurumi picked up the ancient pistol and aimed at Yansei. The corner of her mouth outlined a cold arc. When she was about to pull the trigger, a cold wind suddenly came from behind, and a bone-chilling arm was placed on her shoulder. Who is it? Bang. Tokisaki Kurumi was startled at first, but she immediately turned around and fired. Crack. One had to admit that Tokisaki Kurumi's gun skills were at the peak of perfection. Even though it was a shot based on her intuition, it still blasted Dustless's head and tore a fist-sized hole in it. It's you? After seeing who it was, Tokisaki Kurumi's nerves tensed up. She looked at the hole in Dustless's forehead and didn't dare to underestimate or be careless. After several exchanges, Tokisaki Kurumi understood how heaven-defying Dustless was. The Glint Fruit's elemental transformation ability could easily heal this kind of injury. You've got guts. I was wondering why I didn't see you in school. So you've been plotting against Yansei. Fortunately, I had the foresight to leave the Flying Thunder God Sorcerer on you. Otherwise, I might have succeeded this time. His forehead glowed faintly and his wounds instantly healed. Dustless stared at Tokisaki Kurumi as if nothing had happened. Unlike before, Dustless was clearly enraged this time. His eyes flickered with a cold light of destruction. Kiki, Dustless laughed sinisterly as he stared at Tokisaki Kurumi. Tokisaki Kurumi, haven't you always wanted to fuse with me? I'll fulfill your wish this time. Really? Tokisaki Kurumi was stunned for a moment before rejoicing. However, when she saw Dustless's actions, her joy was quickly replaced by endless fear. What are you trying to do? Tokisaki Kurumi's eyes flickered. She saw Dustless slowly walking over and taking off his jacket. His invasive eyes made Tokisaki Kurumi uncomfortable as a silent fear spread through her body. What am I trying to do? Of course I want to fuse with you. Isn't it great that I'll fulfill your wish? Dustless retorted as he stared at Tokisaki Kurumi. His eyes instantly turned into Sharingan as his eye power surged violently. Kemue. A twisting whirlpool appeared above Tokisaki Kurumi and she was swallowed before she could react. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-28. In an unfamiliar space, the sky was dark and gloomy. There was no sun, no blue sky, and no white clouds. The so-called sky was just a hazy darkness. What is this place? An extra-dimensional space? Tokisaki Kuzo looked left and right with a dazed expression. Her watery eyes widened as she looked around. No matter how she looked at it, this silent world was like a living hell. Is this Dustless's doing? What an incredible man. He always manages to shock others. Shoving her finger into her mouth, Tokisaki Kurumi said in distress, "This fellow is too weird. I shouldn't have challenged a man." Tokisaki Kurumi was filled with regret. She looked at this unfamiliar world and felt helpless. Her ability was meaningless in this world. Ever since she was born, Tokisaki Kurumi had killed countless people. Among the enemies she had encountered, Dustless was the most monstrous. Whether it was Tashiichi Origami from AST or Changyashina, they were all nothing compared to Dustless. They were just clowns. Tokisaki Kurumi would rather face 10 Changyashinas than fight Dustless. His ability was always so shocking and incomprehensible. However, to be able to use such a powerful ability, you're indeed worthy of being the man I value. Soon, the haze on Tokisaki Kurumi's face disappeared without a trace. It was replaced by a crisp laughter. Her fair face was extremely adorable. Tokisaki Kurumi was like a shape-shifting demoness. No one knew what she was thinking. You're in trouble, yet you can still laugh. This is worthy of praise. Your mentality is very good. A faint ripple appeared in the void. A gap slowly enlarged and Dustless walked out from it. His clean-cut face, wise and confident eyes, and that almost natural indifference. His eyes that were as calm as still water seemed to be able to see through everything. Nothing could escape Dustless's control. "Little man, why did you imprison me? Don't tell me you're really going to push me down?" Although I don't mind having a beautiful night with you, don't you think it's too boring to do that kind of thing in this kind of place with dark clouds covering the sun?" Tokisaki Kurumi's words were glib as her eyes narrowed into crescents. Her perfect face coupled with her soft voice was as smooth as silk, making it hard for anyone to reject her. It had to be said that Tokisaki Kurumi was a perfect person. Although she wasn't flawless, she was very skilled in dealing with men. Knowing that she couldn't defeat Dustless with her own strength, she immediately adopted a soft approach. "Spoil sport? So what? Do you have a choice now? Do you have the right to negotiate with me? Don't get carried away, Tokisaki Kurumi." Dustless looked at her coldly. Although he felt that this girl was not bad, it was absolutely unforgivable for her to make a move on the people he cared about. "If you speak so coldly, I will be very sad." Tokisaki Kurumi revealed a sad expression. Her eyes were watery as if she was about to cry. It was truly a pitiful sight. "Keep acting. Keep acting." However, Dustless only responded with a sneer. Tokisaki Kurumi's ability to show off was not bad, but it was a pity that she chose the wrong person this time. Dustless was like a stone that didn't understand women's feelings. No matter how Tokisaki Kurumi tried to seduce him, he remained unmoved. "Stinking brat, let me out." After a while, seeing that Dustless didn't budge, Tokisaki Kurumi finally couldn't hold it in anymore. She didn't want to spend the rest of her life in this silent world. "I'm stronger than you, so what if I don't listen to you? Are you going to bite me?" Dustless said coldly. "Let's talk nicely. Why don't we both take a step back? If both sides suffer, it will only benefit AST." Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with a helpless smile. Her tone was inevitably weaker than before. "I'm stronger than you." Dustless's reply was the same as before. "Bastard, don't be so shameless." Tokisaki Kurumi's face was ashen. "I'm stronger than you." Hearing this, Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with hatred. Her heart was filled with bitterness. Just as Dustless said, he was stronger than her and could easily take the life of the weak. On the other hand, Tokisaki Kurumi had no choice. How about this? Taking a deep breath, Tokisaki Kurumi had no choice but to throw caution to the wind. "I swear I won't trouble you anymore. How about you let me out? In the future we'll go our separate ways." "I'm stronger than you. My words are final." Dustless looked up at the sky. His words made Tokisaki Kurumi vomit blood. "You're ruining my good impression of you. Don't be like this, okay?" Tokisaki Kurumi laughed, but her face was twitching. It was obvious that she was forcing a smile. Her true intention was to beat Dustless to death. "You want to go back? Sure, kneel down and give me a massage." With a wave of his hand, a stool appeared at Dustless's feet. He sat on it with a satisfied expression and closed his eyes to rest. You brat, don't push your luck. Seeing this, Tokisaki Kurumi clenched her teeth in anger. Her eyes turned red. This damn brat is too much of a bully. He wants me to massage his annoying enemy's back? Dream on. Then don't go out for the rest of your life. Goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, the void around Dustless rippled and gradually swallowed his body. Wait, you win. I agree. Seeing that Dustless was about to disappear, Tokisaki Kurumi panicked. If she was the only one left in this dead world, she might as well kill herself. She quickly agreed to Dustless's condition. You want to fight with me? I'll play you to death this time. Dustless smiled without saying a word. He sat on the chair and crossed his legs comfortably. If you don't work hard, I'll let you spend the rest of your life in this world and slowly torture you. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21-29. Tokisaki Kurumi was also having a headache. Rather than spending the rest of her life alone in this world, it would be better to just kill her. The most horrifying way to die wasn't to suffer all kinds of torture or pain, but to live in a completely different world without anyone to communicate with and without the concept of time. Living in such an environment for a long time would drive one crazy. Serve me well if you know what's good for you. If you anger me, you'll have to bear the consequences. Dustless was lying on the chair comfortably. Behind him was Tokisaki Kurumi, who was unwilling but could only endure. Brat, don't be so smug. If you fall into my hands in the future. Tokisaki Kurumi's eyes flickered with resentment. All along, she had been pranked by Dustless many times and had accumulated a bellyful of resentment. Sadly, Dustless was always one step ahead of her, and she was always the one suffering. Just you wait. Standing behind Dustless, Tokisaki Kurumi pinched Dustless's shoulder. Although it was a massage, her face was filled with displeasure. She wanted to strangle Dustless to death. Be gentler. Dustless's eyes rolled as he scolded. Be careful or I'll throw you into this world and lock you up for 10 years. There won't be anyone or any life to accompany you. You'll only be left with eternal loneliness. I'll bear with it. Tokisaki Kuzo was also helpless against Dustless's methods. He looked around the dark world and couldn't help but shiver. To be imprisoned in such a place where people were neither human nor ghost was better off dead. Not bad. You have the potential to be a maid. Dustless's face was filled with pleasure. After being scolded by him, Tokisaki Kurumi's techniques were much more delicate and appropriate. Now that he thought about it, the old saying was right. If you don't punish someone for 3 days, they'll become unruly. Sometimes, arrogant women like Tokisaki Kurumi needed to be taught a lesson to make them obedient. Time flew by and unknowingly a few hours had passed. This guy really knows how to enjoy himself. Tokisaki Kurumi massaged her sore shoulders in anger. Every time she met Dustless, she would be filled with anger and frustration. But she had nowhere to vent it, which made her feel especially aggrieved. Hey, you should let me go. You actually fell asleep? Seeing that Dustless was ignoring her, Tokisaki Kurumi walked over and saw Dustless squinting his eyes with a serene expression. His breathing was even. Take a closer look. This fellow is only not annoying when he's sleeping. She stared at Wu Chen's face. The more she looked at his handsome face, the more interesting it felt. It gave her a feeling of reliability and trustworthiness. Tokisaki Kurumi couldn't help but move closer to Wu Chen. Their cheeks were almost touching. Should I take this opportunity to ambush her? Tokisaki Kuzo's eyes darted around. At this moment, Dustless was full of openings. His entire body was full of openings. A sneak attack would definitely succeed. If you want to take this opportunity to kill me, then save it. Don't do anything stupid. An indifferent voice suddenly sounded. Tokisaki Kurumi glanced over and saw that Dustless had already opened his eyes. His deep and bright eyes were calmly looking at Tokisaki Kurumi. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Tokisaki Kurumi giggled and distanced herself from Dustless. It was best to distance herself from such a dangerous person. Can you let me go now? Tokisaki Kurumi blinked her seductive eyes and asked. Of course, but... Dustless smiled and glanced at Tokisaki Kurumi a few more times before retracting his gaze. He closed his eyes and ignored Tokisaki Kurumi. Are you trying to go back on your word? Tokisaki Kurumi's white oval face was filled with anger. If it wasn't for the fact that she had no other choice, she would have beaten Dustless to death. It was bad enough that this brat was despicable, but now he wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river. She had already massaged his back and legs. This brat wanted to go back on his word after enjoying himself. I will naturally abide by the agreement. You can rest assured. Dustless gave the girl a comforting look, indicating for her to relax. He then said indifferently, as the saying goes, one must always be wary of others. What if you still try to harm Toka and the others after I let you go? Tokasaki Kurumi's mouth trembled as she took a deep breath to calm her emotions. She forced a smile and said, I can swear that I will never harm you again. I still don't believe you. Dustless looked at Tokasaki Kurumi with suspicion. Then what do you want to do? Kill me? Tokasaki Kurumi suppressed her anger and asked. Wuxia sorted out his thoughts and replied, It's very simple. From now on, you will follow me just like 10 fragrances and 4 elements. You want to restrict my freedom? Wishful thinking. Tokasaki Kurumi rejected decisively. Following Dustless around all day was equivalent to having her freedom restricted. It was worse than death. Then you should reflect on your actions, Miss Tokasaki Kurumi. Dustless said without a care. His gaze did not change. He had already expected Tokasaki Kurumi to reject his terms, so he was not surprised. I still have things to do, so I won't play with you anymore. Goodbye. I will come again when you are enlightened. The space above Dustless's head rippled as a gap grew bigger and bigger, quickly swallowing Dustless's body. You have to bring me along if you want to leave. Tokasaki Kurumi's gaze froze as she stomped on the ground and jumped up to grab Dustless's right leg. Childish. Activating the glint fruit, Dustless's right leg turned into elemental energy. Naturally, Tokasaki Kurumi's hand missed and fell to the ground pathetically. At the same time, Dustless returned to the real world. In fact, Dustless had wanted to imprison Tokasaki Kurumi for a long time. This girl was extremely ambitious and would use any despicable means to achieve her goals. Tokasaki Kurumi had killed countless people and had no bottom line. For the safety of others, he could only imprison Tokasaki Kurumi temporarily, hoping that she would come to her senses one day and repent. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2130. After solving Tokasaki Kurumi's problem, Dustless leisurely escaped from the Kamui's space. His face was as calm as a breeze, and he had a gentle smile on his face. In the future he won't have to worry about Tokasaki Kurumi anymore. Time is merciless, and sooner or later her patience and sharpness will be exhausted. In the end she will succumb under Dustless's feet. Bang bang bang, inside the Kamui space it was just as Dustless had predicted. Tokasaki Kurumi discovered that there was no exit in this world. She stomped her feet in frustration, venting her frustrations and depression. However, her 2 pairs of delicate feet collapsed and no one responded to her. Is it really as Dustless said? Am I the only one in this world? Tokasaki Kurumi's eyes widened as she looked around. She wanted to drag the entire world into her eyes, but after looking around for a long time, she didn't find a single person. No, let alone a person, she didn't even find a single life form. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 1 day, 2 days. Tokasaki Kurumi finally confirmed that this was a dead space without any life. After another 2 days, Tokasaki Kurumi realized that she couldn't endure it any longer. Wasting her time alone was worse than death. Dustless, come out. I agree to your conditions. Tokasaki Kurumi's cries filled the Kamui space. Her sorrowful tone was filled with longing and reluctance to part with this world. After all, she was still a young girl and it was normal for her to yearn for the bustling outside world. Tokasaki Kurumi felt a chill run down her spine at the thought of being a lonely ghost in a dead space. Dustless, come out. I know you're watching from a corner. I admit defeat. I agree to your conditions. Come out. Tokasaki Kurumi screamed hysterically, but what made her collapse was that no one responded to her in this boundless world. Everything was looking at her coldly. During this period, Dustless naturally noticed Tokasaki Kurumi's transformation. He was like a wooden block as he watched Tokasaki Kurumi's transformation. Only by completely obliterating the persistence in her heart will this woman be sensible. If I let this woman out now, I might just be releasing a hungry wolf. Let her continue to starve for the time being. Dustless mumbled. At the same time, he looked at the girls who were dressing up and frowned. It's just a concert. Is there a need to make it so grand? Of course, you don't understand a girl's thoughts. Murasame Rain rolled her eyes at Dustless, and her tone was full of resentment. It seemed that she was still upset about being spanked by Dustless last time. In front of the person she likes, a girl always wants to show her perfect self, so she must dress carefully. Is that so? Dustless muttered as he looked at the scenery outside the window. His empty eyes were a little dazed for a moment. By the way, I heard from Kotori that you captured Tokisaki Kurumi alive and imprisoned her? Murasame Rain took a sip of her coffee and looked at Dustless with a questioning gaze. That's right. Dustless nodded slightly and didn't hide it. He told Kotori about the news of imprisoning Tokisaki Kurumi 2 days ago. Do you want to collect her data? Dustless asked softly. He closed his eyes and said calmly, That's possible. You agreed so easily? Is this still the Dustless I know? The one who bargains for everything? Murasame Rain stared at Dustless with a strange smile on her face. She immediately shook her head. No, it's useless to collect Tokisaki Kurumi's data. That woman is very smart. The so-called data we collected before was deliberately falsified by her, and we suffered a big loss. You should continue to imprison her. Although it's a bit unfair to Tokisaki Kurumi, it's not a bad thing to wear down her spirit. Murasame Rain added. She seemed to agree with Dustless's method. Since you said so, then I'll do as you say. Dustless couldn't help but look at Murasame Rain a few more times. He was quite surprised. He thought that Murasame Rain would definitely ask him to release Tokisaki Kurumi, who knew that this time she was unexpectedly easy to talk to. Well, Dustless-kun, let's go see the concert of Night Tempter Meijio. A few extremely eye-catching young girls walked out of their respective bedrooms excitedly and bounced towards Wu Chen. The joy on everyone's face was clearly visible. You guys are very beautiful. Dustless was stunned for a few seconds and then he smiled and gave them a thumbs up. His eyes swept past Yatatoka, Shirinai, Yatu and Yatu. He couldn't help but nod, showing an expression of appreciation. They were originally the type with exquisite features and outstanding looks. Now that they had spent a lot of effort on makeup, their appearances became even more impeccable. Every one of them was gorgeously dressed, as dazzling as the bright moon in the night sky. Why aren't you leaving? If you have time to be long-winded here, it's better to find a good place to rest early. Night Tempter Meijio's concert is very popular. Seeing Dustless and others in a daze, Itsuka Kotori hurriedly scolded with dissatisfaction. Why didn't I see Wu Chen, that stinking brat, praise me? Damn it, could it be because 10 Fragrance and the others are wearing too revealing clothes? Kotori mumbled in her heart. Due to the fact that she still had to work, Kotori was still wearing the same commander uniform as before. She had a cute necktie and she subconsciously exuded a dignified aura. Her 2 slanted eyes were very bright, and she gave off a heroic vibe. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2131. It was a woman's nature to love beauty. After Wu Chen's praise, everyone's face was surging with cheerful smiles. Their hearts were also filled with indescribable excitement. Even though they knew that Wu Chen was flattering them, they were still exceptionally happy. Sometimes mushy words were disgusting, but they were the most useful. Let's go. That seductive Meijio is a troublesome character. Murasame Rain reminded them. They had investigated Meijio before and found that this girl was very similar to Itsuka Kotori. She was also a human with the power of an elf, and she had a very strange fetish, being a lesbian. It will be much harder to take down this elf than before. Itsuka Kotori sighed. Seductress Meijio's personality was very strange. She hated men so much that her favorability would drop below that of a cockroach. You have to do your best, Dustless. Itsuka Kotori gave Dustless an encouraging look and prayed silently. Meijio's concert was at the square in front of the Tachibana station in the western part of Heavenly Palace City. It took Dustless and his group about 10 minutes to arrive. Are you kidding me? It's just a concert. Why are there so many people? After getting out of the car, Dustless looked at the scene in front of him in shock. From afar, the whole square was filled with people. It was almost like a sea of people. It was so crowded that it was difficult to move. Let's wait patiently. This is the reason why we're late. If we were a little earlier there would be even more people and we might even be stuck on the road. Itsuka Kotori rolled her eyes. She wasn't surprised by this at all. Do you want me to chase these people away? Night Sword God Toka blinked her eyes and looked at Dustless expectantly. It seemed like she only needed one command from Dustless and she would do it. This guy, Itsuka Kotori was speechless. In the past, Toka's favorability towards Dustless was 100%. Now she had evolved into a love-struck fool. What frustrated Itsuka Kotori the most was that Dustless did not invest in her at all. All he did was take her out to eat all sorts of delicacies. This caused Toka to like Dustless even more. Leave it to me, this is a piece of cake. 8 Dance Yagiya patted her chest and promised. Then, a large amount of spiritual energy fluctuations erupted from her body. Boom boom boom. The originally bright sky was suddenly filled with strong winds. It was as if a tornado had suddenly appeared. Many people who were caught off guard were blown away by the wind. What a bunch of unscrupulous people. How dare they release their spiritual energy in broad daylight? Aren't they afraid of being discovered by the other members of AST? Well, it makes sense. Birds of a feather flock together. Dustless is always acting like the boss of the world. His friends don't follow the rules either. In a corner about 10 meters away from Itsuka Kotori and the others, a thin girl wearing a hat was observing Toka and the others with her watery eyes. She did not want to let go of any loopholes. Of course, the girl noticed Yagiya's actions. She glanced at the mysterious girl who was secretly observing Toka and the others. Even though she was wearing a hat, it was hard to hide her beautiful and peaceful face. Her lively eyes were bright and lively. The girl was also holding a small bag of hardtack in her hand. She was eating while observing Toka and the others. Strange, where did Dustless go? Her gaze suddenly flickered a few times, and the biscuit that was stuffed into her mouth was also abruptly put down. Unknowingly, Wuxia was like a ghost that came and went without a trace, and disappeared from the girl's clear eyes. Girl, are you looking for me? You're not here to spy on me, are you? A large, warm hand suddenly clasped the young girl's shoulder from behind. The mysterious man looked at the young girl in front of him with a faint smile on his face. Who is it? The girl's heart skipped a beat. The moment she turned around, she saw a familiar face. She asked subconsciously, Dustless? Did you notice me? The girl who was secretly monitoring Dustless and the others was Toka Origami. Wuxia nodded and said with a light smile, Of course I noticed. Since the moment we left home, you have been secretly following us. Toka Origami bit her lips and whispered, Don't tell me you have eyes behind your head as well? You guessed it right. No, I didn't. Dustless shook his finger and said calmly, You want to get close to me without me noticing? You're still far from it. All right, now tell me your purpose. Toka Origami obviously hesitated. She lowered her head and her eyes flashed with a strange luster. Is it hard to say? Dustless frowned and touched the girl's embarrassed face. He did not make things difficult for the girl and smiled gently. If that's the case, you don't have to tell me. I might have already thought of it. When you AST kill or capture the elves, I just hope you can stay away from me. Yuichi Origami took a deep breath and looked around. After making sure that there were no AST members around, she pulled Dustless into the corner. She stood on her tiptoes and said softly, You have to be careful these days. The higher-ups have made a secret plan and they might want to deal with you. Deal with me? Hearing this, Dustless laughed and said casually, Come on. I'll smash as many people as you come. You misunderstood me. It's not about dealing with you. Toka Origami shook her head. After hesitating for a few seconds, she remembered that Dustless saved her parents. She gritted her teeth and said, I heard that they might be dealing with Toka. You have to be careful. Toka. Wu Chen's pupils suddenly constricted a few times, and a dense viciousness flashed across his face. In his eyes, there was even a trace of soul-stirring ghastly killing intent. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2132. You Dustless. Are you okay? You looked so scary just now. Toichi Origami looked at Dustless, whose expression had changed greatly, and instinctively took a few steps back. His scarlet eyes were filled with a gloomy aura of death. Even the sharp-eyed Toichi Origami could see that there was a chill rolling in the air around Dustless. Toichi Origami's face was as pale as frost. She found that her chest seemed to be carrying a mountain. It was difficult to breathe and she could suffocate at any time. It seems that the Night Sword God Toka is Dustless's beloved daughter, and those girls are probably the same. As long as we dare to touch them, we will inevitably suffer a disaster. I hope that the higher-ups can give up this unrealistic plan and don't burn themselves. Toichi Origami's face was unusually stiff. The aura that disappeared in an instant just now gave her the illusion that AST had challenged a devil who had done all kinds of bad things, and she could be crushed by the furious Dustless at any time. I'm fine. Dustless softly responded and looked at Toichi Origami a few more times. His tone had a rare trace of gentleness. Origami, if I remember correctly, your original purpose of joining AST was to avenge your parents and destroy the elves, right? I hope that there will no longer be a child in the world who has the same tragedy as you. Yes. Toichi Origami nodded slightly and said bluntly, when I learned that my parents were killed by the elves, I hated the elves to the core. So, I resolutely joined AST and underwent hellish training. Today I finally have some small achievements. Small achievements? Wu Qin laughed involuntarily and scratched the girl's delicate nose. You're already the strongest in AST. Among the humans you're also second to none. Don't belittle yourself. Besides, your situation is different from others. At this point, Dustless suddenly became silent. As a transmigrator he knew some unknown inside stories. Toichi Origami was not only a member of AST, but she was also a proper elf. Besides what? Seeing that Dustless was silent and his eyes were flickering, no one knew what he was thinking. Origami asked curiously, is there something special about me? Of course there is. You will find out in the future. Dustless responded with a smile. It was better to keep silent for the time being. In the future, Origami would understand. Now that your parents have been resurrected, your hatred towards the elves must have dissipated, right? Why don't you leave AST? You and Shixiang are classmates, so you know her personality. Dustless's words were shocking. He wanted to poach AST and pull Yuichi Origami into his camp. Koichi Origami fell silent. Although her hatred for Itsuka Kotori had disappeared, it was still difficult for her to integrate into Dustless's team in an instant. Although my relationship with Nightblade God Toka is not harmonious, it is undeniable that she is indeed a good girl. Yuichi Origami sighed. She still believed in her own vision. That's right. There's no such thing as good or bad in this world. Even if there is a bad person, they have the right to repent and start over. Moreover, AST can't judge a person's good or bad. Dustless said softly and then explained lazily, besides, don't you think the organization behind you is strange? They used to kill elves, but this time they want to capture Shixiang alive. Don't you have doubts about this? Origami, in my heart, you have always been a very smart girl. Really? Origami's little face blushed. Obviously she was a little shy. This was the first time she heard Dustless praise her. Of course. Dustless nodded seriously and said in a deep voice, Itsuka Shido's sister, Chongoya Shina, is a living example. I hope you will not follow in her footsteps. Origami's face suddenly stiffened, and a flash of gloominess flashed across her face. It seems that you also understand Chongoya Shina's physical condition? That's for the best. I don't have to explain any more nonsense. There are some things that I don't need to explain to you. You should understand that in this world, anything related to the organization is absolutely not clean. After peeling off the bright outer layer, you will find that the soul inside is just a rotten apple. Dustless took a deep look at Origami, who was in a daze, and then left. Night Beauty Gio's concert was about to start. If Shixiang and the others could not find him, they might do something out of line. Wait a minute. Dustless had just taken a few steps when Origami stopped him. If one day I leave ST, will you take me in? Origami's watery eyes were wide open and unusually lively. Although she kept calm, Dustless could still hear some palpitation in her tone. It was enough to see that Origami was very nervous at the moment. That's for sure. Dustless answered seriously, even if it's for a lifetime, as long as you don't feel bored and sleepy, you can stay at any time. My door here is always open for you. Are you sure? Origami's eyes suddenly lit up, and she looked at Dustless with a happy face. Seeing the girls cheering, Dustless could not help but be speechless. What he said was completely from the bottom of his heart. Even if he took Origami in, at most he would add an extra pair of chopsticks. It was no big deal. Perhaps in Origami's heart, She misunderstood the meaning of Dustless's words, which was why she was so excited. Moi. While Dustless was complaining in his heart, Origami left her lips on Dustless's cheek without leaving a trace. Remember to keep your promise in the future. As soon as her voice fell, Origami skipped away. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2133. Girls these days are so unrestrained. Wu Qin rubbed the remaining water stains on his cheeks, and his face was filled with helplessness. Looking at the back of Yuichi Origami, Wu Qin knew that he would never get rid of this burden in the future. In other words, Tabichi Origami was going to follow him for the rest of her life. Is it because I brought her parents back to life that Tabichi Origami is grateful to me? Dustless mumbled to himself as he walked toward Itsuka Kotori and the others. Seriously, the concert is about to start, why are you still walking around? Aren't you afraid of losing your way? Itsuka Kotori put her hands on her waist and said aggressively. I'm not a person with no sense of direction. Dustless was speechless. He didn't know when Itsuka Kotori started to pick on him. Looks like I'll have to wait for a while. Looking at the sea of people in front of him, the entrance was almost full. It would take at least 10 minutes for them to enter the venue. I'm going to buy some juice, I'll be back soon. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless left in a carefree manner. He didn't even give Kotori a chance to refute. He directly transformed into a gust of wind and drifted away in an exceptionally carefree and ethereal manner. Damn you, you're fast. Itsuka Kotori crossed her arms and stomped her feet. Commander, seeing Dustless leaving, Rain Murasane came over and giggled. Didn't you notice? You've been picking on Dustless recently, especially when it comes to girls. Did I? Itsuka Kotori frowned and said proudly. Why would I do that? I would never pick on a petty man like him. It must be your illusion. Illusion? Rain Murasame rolled her eyes. She wasn't the only one who thought so. Many people thought Itsuka Kotori was doing it on purpose. Especially after Dustless sealed Itsuka Kotori's power last time, the feeling was even more obvious. Seriously, you want me to watch a concert with a bunch of young people? Are you kidding me? Dustless complained in front of the vending machine. Dustless had lived for too long. Although he looked young, he was old enough to be their ancestor. It was normal for young people to have different thoughts. It's about time. Dustless looked at the plastic juice and nodded with satisfaction. Not only were there soft drinks, there were also snacks that Tabichi liked. Bang. The instant he turned around and left, Dustless suddenly bumped into a figure. Moreover, because Dustless's strength was too great, he directly knocked that figure to the ground. Sorry, I didn't mean it. After seeing it was a girl, Dustless scratched his head awkwardly and quickly helped the girl who fell to the ground. Stay away from me, stinky man. Who would have thought that as soon as Wu Qin touched the other party's boneless jade hand, the girl who was bumped into by Wu Qin immediately screamed as if she had met the most feared cockroach or mouse. It's really hateful. The concert will start soon. I wanted to buy a glass of juice to moisten my throat. I didn't expect to encounter such a thing. The girl complained and stood up. Her resentment rose to the sky. You are? After Dustless retracted his arm, he stared at the girl in front of him with some surprise and subconsciously asked, That, are you Miss Seducing Meijio? Unexpectedly, the girl just snorted and looked at Wu Qin seriously. When she saw his white skin, she was shocked. Then she sighed silently, You're so beautiful. Why are you a man? It would be great if it was a girl. Due to some shadows in the past, Seducing Meijio hated men very much and hated them to the bone. Don't think that you can forget it after bumping into me and apologizing. Seducing Meijio stared at Dustless and swept her eyes over him. She seemed to be thinking about how to get Dustless to compensate her with something valuable. Seducing Meijio, what do you want? Dustless asked faintly. You have to call me Lord. Seducing Meijio stared at Dustless with her eyes. Lord? Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly and couldn't help but take a few more glances at the girl. Immediately he said coldly, You are quite beautiful, but your temper is too bad. Forgive me for not accompanying you. Goodbye. As his voice fell, Dustless ignored Seducing Meijio's stunned eyes and left her with his back view. You bastard dare to ignore me? Seducing Meijio was stunned. Her eyes widened and she immediately pinched her skin a few times. The intense pain made her realize that this was not a dream. A seducing Meijio was ignored by a man, no, by a cockroach. Outrageous. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Seducing Meijio didn't know where the strength came from. Seducing Meijio just jumped and blocked Dustless in front of her. She immediately scolded angrily, "Why are you so impolite? Do you have any manners? Do you think you can just apologize after bumping into others and dirtying their clothes? And, do you know who I am? What I said before was nonsense. You mainly want to ask if I know you, right?" Dustless pointed to the huge billboard. There was a portrait of a girl on it that was exactly the same as Seducing Meijio. He said, "You are that Seducing Meijio, right? You sing very well, but whether you sing well or not, it has nothing to do with me." Dustless was very rude and sarcastic. He was not the kind of person who chased after stars or was unable to walk when he saw a beauty. Although Seducing Meijio's appearance was not bad and she belonged to the type who was good at both literature and martial arts, Dustless knew a lot of such beautiful women. There were even many female confidants in the system who were more outstanding than Seducing Meijio. Hearing this, Seducing Meijio trembled with anger. Since her debut in fame, this was the first time someone had degraded her as worthless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2134. What about you? Do you have any opinion? I tell you, I have seen countless beautiful women in my life. In the eyes of those people, you are very ordinary and plain. Dustless suddenly attacked, and this proud girl was really self-righteous. Dustless also knew that Temptress Meijio had a shadow and was more hostile to men, but she couldn't kill a boat of men because of a scum. Good boy, you have guts. Temptress Meijio bit her thin lips and glared. When she was about to teach Dustless a lesson, she suddenly saw the concert ticket in his hand and suddenly giggled. She was like a blooming snow lotus, elegant and refined. She was different. Although she was very cold and piercing, it was difficult to dislike her. Although this chick is a little proud, I have to say that she does have the capital to be proud. The crisp laughter was like the sound of nature, just like the code name of Temptress Meijio as an elf, songstress. Her talent in singing was really superior. You keep saying that you hate me, but you still came to my concert. Is this a confession without being pressed? With her hands on her hips, Temptress Meijio's aura was very strong and domineering. Her exquisite gem-like eyes were full of the luster of a winner. It seemed that she had already seen the scene of defeating Dustless. "Don't call me boy, my name is Dustless. I am enough to be your grandfather." Dustless responded plainly. "You." Temptress Meijio was angry and said angrily, "Dustless, right? Don't change the subject for me, you haven't answered my question yet." "Did you see it?" Wuxia shook the plastic bag in his hand and said with boredom, "I'm just accompanying others to your concert. This is your good fortune from your previous life." Temptress Meijio glared at Dustless fiercely, and her silver teeth were almost broken. Can this hateful bastard speak more irritating? Who is Temptress Meijio? She was the goddess of countless men's dreams. Her heavenly voice had won the hearts of countless men. Among her fans, 90% were men. However, this bastard in front of her didn't give her any face. He even mocked her time and time again. It was simply unforgivable. "If you'll be my slave soon." Tempting night beauty Gio's lips curled into a cold arc. She suddenly cleared her throat and a pleasant song came out of her mouth. The rhythm was very good, the intonation was very elegant and gentle, and the voice was also very magnetic and soft. It sounded quite good. However, Dustless wasn't interested in it. He just stared at the entrance in the distance. When he saw that Itsuka Kotori and the others were about to enter the venue, he muttered to himself, "Time's up, let's go back." Leaving such a sentence, Wuxia turned around and left. You don't go. Hey, are you kidding me? You came here to listen to my concert and now I'm singing for you alone. How blissful is that? Do you understand? Temptress Meijio was dumbfounded. She stared at Wuxia, who was leaving straight away. For a moment she was dumbfounded. As long as she called, she didn't know how many men would go through water and tread on fire for her and agree to all her requests. But what was the matter with this hateful stinky brat? He's really a stone in the latrine pit. He's smelly and stubborn. Are you crazy? Dustless turned around and said to Temptress Meijio. She said coldly, "I'll say it again. Your brother's singing is good. What does it have to do with me? I'm just here to accompany someone else. You see this? Dustless took out 2 pieces of ear cotton and said very seriously, I'll sleep when you sing later. To be honest, I'm afraid that you'll disturb my sleep. Goodbye, don't call me again. You bastard, stop right there. I didn't allow you to leave. Temptress Magio quickly chased after Dustless. Unfortunately, she was too slow and didn't manage to grab hold of his hand. Despicable brat, you forced me to do this. Seeing this, Temptress Magio was furious. She clasped her hands together and sang again with a devout expression. The sound of nature once again came out of her throat. It also had a special power that she had never had before. When the song entered Dustless's ears, his body suddenly stopped. Moreover, his eyes were empty and he was very dull. He had turned into a walking corpse. Come here. Temptress Magio smiled arrogantly. This time, Dustless didn't violate Temptress Magio's will. He turned around obediently. His eyes were hazy. It was obvious that he had been controlled by Temptress Magio's singing. You still want to fight with me? Despicable men are all the same. Temptress Magio said disdainfully. She immediately hooked her white fingers and smiled charmingly. Come here. As soon as her voice fell, Dustless walked over in a daze. I'm so tired. Temptress Magio sighed. After talking to Dustless for a while, she was very angry. She immediately glared at Dustless fiercely. Watch how I deal with you. At the same time, Dustless also walked over to Temptress Magio. His eyes were already dull. Temptress Magio was very satisfied when she saw Dustless's appearance. You fought with me and said so many disgusting words. Don't think that I will let you go so easily. Xiao Magio curiously walked around Dustless and whispered, This guy is so beautiful and his skin is so white. It's even better than mine. It's hard to suspect that he's a boy. How disappointing. Temptress Magio lamented. Her dead heart suddenly throbbed. She sincerely hoped that Dustless was a fair and beautiful girl. But, Temptress Magio stared at Itsuka Kotori and the others. She stroked her chin and smiled, Leave your female companions to me. I will serve them well. Temptress Magio chuckled, but she didn't see Dustless's cold smile. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2135. How should I deal with you, brat? You are so disrespectful to me. I can't let you go so easily. I must leave you with an unforgettable shadow. Temptress Magio circled around Dustless, fiddling with her slender fingers. Her watery eyes flickered. She was obviously thinking about how to deal with Dustless. Kneel down. Temptress Magio's eyes rolled and she ordered seriously. However, Dustless didn't appreciate it. Like a stone, he stood motionless. His dull eyes were empty, without the slightest emotion. You don't listen to me? How is that possible? You were obedient just now. Temptress Magio looked at Dustless in a daze. Her eyes were wide open and she looked like a curious baby. Could it be that my ability has failed? Temptress Magio frowned. In desperation, she cleared her throat and immediately sang a song again. She tried to control Dustless again and make this guy obey her orders. The beautiful and pleasant song came out of Temptress Magio's mouth again. Unfortunately, Dustless still stood motionless like a stone. Temptress Magio was suddenly dumbfounded. She ordered Dustless to kneel down again, but the other party ignored her. Impossible, my ability can't fail. Temptress Magio's eyes were uncertain. A terrible thought suddenly emerged in her mind. If her ability disappeared, what should she do? Your ability didn't fail, but it doesn't work on me. At this moment, Dustless spoke lazily. His dull eyes also recovered the flickering spirit. There was a sarcastic arc at the corner of his mouth. You are okay. Temptress Magio's small mouth was round and full of confusion. Dustless still obeyed her orders just now. Of course I am okay. If you can control me, then I would have been torn into pieces. I just want to tell you, don't overestimate yourself. In my eyes, you're just an ordinary person. There's nothing special about you. Dustless said frankly. He did not give any face to Night Tempter Magio at all. He laughed gloatingly and said, But your embarrassed expression is very beautiful. Don't be too proud. Night Temptress Magio was furious and her body erupted with violent spirit power fluctuations. The void suddenly changed subtly and surging spirit power continued to erupt from her body. The power of the elves? Seems like you have good control over it, but I have something to remind you. Dustless stretched lazily and explained, your concert is about to start. There are still many AST members lingering around. Are you sure you want to fight me? Just wait and see. Hearing this, Temptress Magio's expression was stiff. She retracted her spiritual power and glared at Dustless fiercely as if she wanted to remember this hateful face in her heart forever. After taking a deep look at Dustless, he immediately lured Xiao Magio away. Wait, I haven't asked you to leave yet. In a flash, Dustless blocked in front of Night Temptress Magio. He teased her figure with a teasing smile as if he had found a fun toy. Night Temptress Magio felt a chill and uneasiness. Go away from me or I won't be polite. Night Temptress Magio glared at him and threatened him impolitely. You are already not polite. Just now, you actually used your spirit power to bewitch me. This is already a provocation to me. If I let you leave safely, wouldn't I lose face? Dustless said slowly. The meaning of his words was to lure Night Temptress Magio to pay the price. Then what do you want? Fight with me? Are you my opponent? Human. Night Temptress Magio said disdainfully. She had to admit that although Dustless was a bit evil, she did not think that she was not Dustless's opponent. Of course, I will take it back with interest. With two strange laughs, Dustless's body turned into a destructive streamer. He flashed behind Night Temptress Magio at an incredible speed, and there was an extremely evil laughter. I heard that you hate men touching you. I just don't believe it. I just want to touch you. Hearing this, Night Temptress Magio was shocked. Her spirit power erupted and she quickly left. Still want to run? Ignorant. Dustless snorted coldly. He grabbed Night Temptress Magio's shoulder in an instant, and he skillfully lifted Night Temptress Magio's short skirt, revealing her snow-white skin. The white and red perky buttocks were beautiful, and the pure white fat was in his eyes. The scenery was pleasant. Ah, smelly rogue, let go of me. Night Temptress Magio screamed a few times. Her small face was red and she struggled quickly. Unfortunately, Night Temptress Magio's strength was too weak compared to Dustless. It was useless at all. Paw. A slap fell unceremoniously, and a bright red palm print suddenly appeared on the snow-white skin. You dare to hit my buttocks? Night Temptress Magio looked at the shameless Dustless with a face full of evil interest. At this moment, her beautiful hair stood up, and she wanted to swallow Dustless alive. You still dare to stare at me? Dustless sneered again and again, and then a few more slaps fell unceremoniously. Paw. How about I hit your buttocks? You bite me? But can you beat me? After that, Dustless slapped her again unceremoniously. Paw. How about I hit you? You wanted to control me first, and now I can't retaliate against you? What a domineering, unreasonable and unruly little woman. Dustless ridiculed and unceremoniously taught Night Temptress Magio a lesson. The slaps sounded for more than a dozen times until Night Temptress Magio's white skin turned red. Only then did he reluctantly withdraw his hands. Kill you, I'll definitely kill you. Night Temptress Magio was like a tigress that went berserk. Her eyes emitted a cold light as she looked at the calm Dustless. However, she did not have much confidence in her heart. Sure, if you're not afraid of being hit again, then I'll do as I please. However, the price of provoking me this time will be greater than the dozen slaps just now. Dustless shrugged and was very indifferent. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2136. You. Aren't you embarrassed to bully a girl? Her white cheeks were flushed red, and after a long time, Tempting Magio finally said such incompetent and sullen words. When her voice fell, even Tempting Magio herself was stunned, as if she did not expect herself to say such cowardly words. In the past she was the one who bullied others. Who dared to challenge her like this? Only Dustless, this weirdo, was not charmed by her, and even humiliated Tempting Magio again and again. Girl? That's rare. Dustless's face showed a faint smile and he still teased, from what you did before, I don't think you are a girl anymore. It's rare to see a girl as violent and barbaric as you. Are you still a man? You even bully a girl? Hearing this, Temptress Beauty Geo clenched her fists. If it wasn't for the difference in strength, she really wanted to punch this bastard to death. His face was already infuriating enough, but his words were even more infuriating. Dustless laughed twice and his eyes suddenly became unscrupulous. He stared at tempting Meijio's plump figure. Do you want to try whether I am a man or not? Stinky rogue. Tempting Meijio's face was slightly red and she spat softly. Am I wrong? Are you a girl? Dustless continued to tease. You are obviously a tigress. Don't be too proud. Unable to bear it any longer, Xiao Meijio was enraged. Surging waves of spiritual force broke out from her body and the void suddenly distorted. A terrifying sphere spun and occupied the blue sky. Perhaps it would not be long before it became a terrifying spatial earthquake. You want to fight just because of a disagreement? Sure enough, you are a tigress. Looking at the changes in the sky, Dustless was still teasing the girl. His plain face was fearless as he lazily said, Anyway, even if AST is attracted here, those little girls won't find trouble with me. But you, seductive beauty Miss Jio, if AST knows that you're an elf, can you still live in peace? Hearing these words, Temptress Meijio's expression suddenly stiffened, and her expression suddenly became extremely gloomy. She took a deep breath, stabilized herself and retracted her spiritual power. She couldn't wait to beat Wu Chen into a pig's head. She sneered, You win, scum. What did you call me? Scum. Dustless showed a pained expression and said resentfully, Sure enough, Tigress is unreasonable. Just wait and see. A fragrant wind blew in front of Dustless, and then charming Knight Meijio disappeared, forever disappearing from Dustless's sight. You run pretty fast. Staring at the back of Temptress Meijio, Dustless picked up the bag and slowly walked to the concert venue. The whole person looked comfortable and did not care about the threat of Temptress Meijio. In Dustless's view, this was just asking for humiliation. With the strength of Knight Tempter Meijio, she was still far from being able to shake him. In the concert venue it was pitch black, and only the stage in front was the most eye-catching. The stage was filled with an overwhelming number of people. Looking around, 9 out of 10 people were male, which was enough to show how popular Temptress Meijio was. Sorry I'm late. Dustless's apologetic voice came from beside Itsuka Kotori's seat. There was a small problem midway, so I was delayed. Small problem? Itsuka Kotori immediately looked at him with dissatisfaction and said with disdain, Someone reported to me that you and Temptress Meijio were flirting with each other. You call that a delay? This guy. Hearing this, Dustless almost spat out the drink in his stomach. He glared at Itsuka Kotori. This guy is trying to teach me a lesson. Sure enough, women are easily jealous. Dustless, you actually went behind my back to hook up with someone else's girl? Yasuya Geya glared at Dustless furiously. I must capture you and tie you up so you don't go around fooling around in the future. No, the most direct way is to castrate you or make you infatuated with my body. That's the only way to restrain your heart. Agreed. Taking a look at Dustless, Bazu Shisian also showed dissatisfaction. It was extremely rare for her to stand in the same trench as Bazu Yaguya. Victory and defeat had not been decided between the two of them. How could they let an outsider beat them to it? I think so too. Night Sword God Toka also came over to join in the fun. Lingyin taught me a lot of ways to coax men. I must try them out someday. What nonsense are you talking about? Shut up. Dustless's face darkened and he scolded angrily, That seductress Meijio is a lesbian. She is only interested in girls. The boys who talk to her are more annoying than cockroaches. In desperation, Dustless could only tell the process and the end of the matter and all the details in the middle. This is bad. Murasame Rain frowned, staring at the surrounding environment and said uneasily, Dustless offended seductress Meijio, and we are now in the venue of her concert. This is her territory. As long as seductress Meijio greets us, we will be in danger. She doesn't have the guts. Dustless's mouth raised a faint arc. Seductress Meijio thought of him as a jinx and stayed away from him, let alone provoke him. I'm afraid that the word Dustless will become her nightmare. Maybe when she has a nightmare in the future, she will meet Dustless's annoying face. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2137. She doesn't have the guts. The corner of Dustless's mouth raised a faint arc. He was full of confidence. tempting Knight Meijio to treat him as a jinx and stay away from him, let alone provoke him. I'm afraid that the words dustless will become her nightmare. Maybe when she has nightmares in the future, she will meet Dustless's annoying face. Tempting Knight Meijio herself hates men very much, even more than cockroaches. The reason is actually very simple. When Tempting Knight Meijio became famous, some entertainment companies wanted to use the unspoken rules on her, but Tempting Knight Meijio resolutely refused. Some entertainment companies were unwilling to discredit Tempting Knight Meijio, causing her to be condemned by the public. It was in this moment of worry that Tempting Knight Meijio obtained the powerful power of the elf and resolved this crisis. Since then she has become extremely hateful of humans. Although she deserves sympathy, she can't hate all the men in the world because of a group of scumbags. She is unreasonable. Dustless muttered to himself, let's just go with the flow. You can watch the concert in peace. Dustless waved his hand and gave everyone a comforting look. At the same time, all the lights on the stage were shining. Tempting Knight Meijio and her dance and singing partners were standing on the stage very elegantly. She looks, but she is somewhat beautiful. No wonder she is so arrogant. Dustless stared at the girl for a moment. When he met Tempting Knight Meijio just now, she was not dressed up. She was very casual. It was just an ordinary school uniform, but it was already very outstanding. Now Tempting Knight Meijio was wearing a noble dress. She was like a fairy who had fallen to the mortal world. She was beautiful and moving. Her big eyes were very smart. Her delicate little face was white and flawless. She was very sacred. Hello everyone. I am Tempting Knight Meijio. Welcome to my concert. Thank you for your long-term support. Today is a special day. Thank you. Tempting Knight Meijio gently lifted her dress and immediately bowed with a very elegant expression. There was a comfortable smile on her face. She was very kind and gentle. There was a feeling that one couldn't help but want to open their hearts. Is this still the seductive Meijio? When Dustless saw the girl with a smile on her face, he was speechless. He sighed that the showbiz circle was really deep, and people who were too shallow were not suitable for it. When she met Dustless, Knight Temptress Meijio had a humiliating expression. Now the speed of her face change really made Dustless stunned. He had to raise his middle finger to Knight Temptress Meijio. The speed at which he changed his expression was faster than flipping through a book. So, on this special day, today's concert will be different from the past. In the following time, I will be inviting my fans to sing with me on stage. Temptress Meijio's shocking revelation on the stage immediately caused countless male compatriots to cheer. The cheers were loud and they all screamed Temptress Meijio's name. A bunch of brainless idiots. To Temptress Meijio, you guys are like cockroaches. No, you guys are even more annoying than cockroaches. Seeing this scene, Dustless curled his lips in disdain and sneered, don't think too much about it. Seducer Meijio hates men so much. Why would she sing with you? It's just wishful thinking. Dustless bowed his head and muttered to himself. In fact, he couldn't figure out the purpose of Temptress Meijio. For this proud and eccentric woman, Dustless was actually quite helpless. Do you think she will take the opportunity to trouble us? Murasame Ling-in looked over and frowned and said, I have investigated the information of Temptress Meijio. This kind of thing has never happened before. This time it's a bit weird. You offended her before. Maybe this is a deliberate revenge. Revenge? Dustless heard the words and laughed twice. I don't care. Let her do it. Anyway, she doesn't regret it. The little girl knows the price. You, Murasame Ling-in gave a big supercilious look. She also had a headache about this. Dustless's temper was so casual. So, now please? At this moment Temptress Meijio suddenly announced loudly. Her moving voice was like delicious honey exuding a tempting fragrance, attracting everyone's attention in an instant. I'd like to see what sort of trouble you're planning to cause. Dustless's sight also looked over. In fact, he was really a little weak in his heart. He could fight, but singing? I hope you don't do anything stupid, Temptress Meijio. Dustless muttered in his heart. He immediately stopped looking at Temptress Meijio and closed his eyes to rest calmly. But at the moment when Dustless closed his eyes, Dustless suddenly felt a pair of malicious eyes staring at him. He subconsciously opened his eyes and suddenly saw a pair of exquisite eyes like brilliant gems. This guy. Is he really going to make me lose face? Dustless's mouth twitched a few times. His eyes looked at each other and found that the person who was looking at him maliciously was Temptress Meijio herself. She raised the corners of her thin lips high, and a victorious smile hung on her charming face. Her quick-witted eyes were full of craftiness, and she looked exactly like a mischievous elf. Could it be that she really wants me to sing with her? Dustless frowned and asked. For his singing skills, Dustless naturally knew that he was tone-deaf. Before he crossed over, he went to KTV with his friends to sing and made a lot of jokes, so Dustless had always been a little tired of singing. If he sang with Temptress Meijio this time, he would inevitably become the target of public criticism, and his lifetime reputation would be ruined. Ha! Itsuka Kotori and others suddenly chuckled and looked at Dustless jokingly. At this moment, Dustless's expression was particularly attractive in their eyes. After all, it was the first time that they saw Dustless so depressed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.